Two Mics on Talk Radio.
We'll get you talking.
Good afternoon, I'm Mike Graham, he's Mike Parry. You're listening to the Two Mics live right here on talkRADIO. We're delighted to be back with you for the next 3 hours of serious award-winning journalism. First up, we're talking Brexit brainwash, how universities are only giving students one side of the story. We're talking to a father and son team of explorers ahead of their jaunt to the Antarctic. And of course, we're going to find out where the Portmaster went last night. 0344 499 1000 is the number. Plus, we've got another sparkling edition of Ask Porky. So if you need a problem solved, now is your chance. Just tweet us your question at the Two Mics or at Talk Radio. You're listening to the Two Mics on Talk Radio.
Across the UK, online and on DAB.
The Two Mics on Talk Radio. We'll get you talking.
This is Talk Radio. We are here in the afternoon. It's time to say a very good afternoon to Mr. Mike Porky Parry. Very good afternoon to you, Mr. Parry.
And a very good afternoon to you, MG. And it is great to be back in the Talk Radio studios.
Isn't it nice?
And,
it's a bit warm, though, in here, isn't it?
It is a little warm.
A trifle warm.
I have been to the device on the wall and turned it down to 17.
What, you mean the thermostat?
Yeah, that's right, yeah, which is our favourite working temperature. But nothing appears to be happening.
Really?
So I'm going to have to put the boot in on that.
Well, I know that there were issues before.
Yeah, well, there's issues now.
Now, don't you also have to sit in a different position as well?
Well, we have now cameraed up the studios, right? So
that's bad news for many people.
It's quite bad news.
Because a lot of people like listening to us, and not that many people want to actually see us doing it.
Well, exactly right. You know, we prefer the mystery of our voices to tantalise you rather than
the magic of radio.
Yeah, rather than the reality of our faces.
Yeah.
You know,
because when people see that horrendous shirt you're wearing, they'll be quite horrified.
I don't think so.
Now, it's not a lumberjack shirt.
No, it's not. It's what I call my American Burger Bar tablecloth
shirt.
So
it's a tablecloth shirt.
Yeah, that tablecloth
That's not a good thing.
It's not a bad thing.
Right.
Now, what I was talking to Julia about earlier is a very serious problem about
the money.
Yeah, it slips out your pocket.
I must say, I'm not a fan of the money either.
It slips out your pocket.
It's smaller as well, isn't it?
Look, I'm not against the fact that you had to invent new things for money because the old pound notes wore out too quickly.
Yeah.
So I don't mind it. But what I'm saying
is... You mean the old £10 notes? We haven't had pound notes for quite some time.
Well, the old £10, £20, £5, call them what you will.
By the way, can I just say...
You can't bend these and keep them... I like to have a wedge of 500 quid in my pocket all the time.
I find that quite offensive, the way you talk about money.
No, the wedge
find that offensive.
Stay bent. And when I put...
hang on, a lot of people don't have a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
You're being rather flash and ostentatious.
I'm not being flash and ostentatious.
Describing a lot of a wedge. What are you like, Harry Enfield? Loads of money. Look at how much money I've got.
Right, well, let me tell you this. In a public house yesterday, which I happened to visit before I went to Chelsea last night.
Well, hang on, you were with me before you went to Chelsea?
No, it was before that, actually.
Oh, so you went to a pub before you met me in the pub?
I had to have a meeting. And,
how many pubs a day do you go to?
No.
Hey? You've been to any pubs today?
I pulled out my wedge, and guess what? It, sprung out of my pocket like that all over the floor. So it's dangerous. People will lose money, I'll tell you.
Why don't you get a money clip?
Oh, well, yeah, money clip. Only the aristocracy have
money
money
clips.
No,
that's not true. Over in America, when we used to live there, it was very much a thing to have a money clip.
I had one.
You had one?
It was bought for me.
What did you do with it?
I think I've still got it somewhere. It was a silver money clip made of silver.
Yeah.
I'll tell you where it came from.
Silver money clip made of silver?
Yeah, a real silver.
Real silver?
And it came from Tiffany's.
Not the usual tat that you get out of a petrol station.
Came from Tiffany's.
Did it?
Yes, it did.
Really?
Yes, bought for me.
Well, why don't you get that out, right? See if I'm not sure if they would stay in something like that, but they might. It might be better for you.
I think they probably would.
Well, better still, why not get a wallet and put the money inside the wallet?
I can't stand putting money in wallets. It's
a
ridiculous thing to do. The only thing that I have a wallet for is to put my credit cards in.
Yeah, but surely they've got a place for money as well.
Yeah, I don't like it at all.
Why
not? Bulging wallet full of money. I think that's ostentatious, to be honest.
Oh, right, so you prefer a wedge?
I prefer to put it in my pocket, and then you can instantly get it then. You see what I mean? If I instantly need money. Supposing I've...
Well, why would you instantly need money?
Because I might be somewhere where somebody does something for me and I want to slip them a £20 note to say thank you. Well, you don't...
Such as?
Well, for instance, last night in the restaurant I was in at Chelsea, I thought the young lady who was attending my table was great, so I slipped her a 20 and said thank you very much.
There was no haste about that, was there? How many hours? You were there for about 4 hours.
No, there was, because it was on the way out, and I suddenly remembered I hadn't expressed my appreciation. So getting your wallet out and bringing a note. I tell you, actually,
I did the same. I gave a cash tip to a guy last night in a restaurant.
Oh, did you? Well done. Yeah, but I tell you,
that was because I messed up the one trying to put it on the the machine.
Yeah. Oh, I see. Yes. Right. Okay. That can happen. So
because it said, "Do you wish to contribute to charity?" Right.
Yes.
And I said no.
Yeah. Exactly.
But it then cancelled the whole tip.
Oh, I see. Right. Okay. Yeah. Well, that's.
I don't know how that works.
That's misleading and not good.
I don't like to be sort of hijacked and ambushed in restaurants. Like
I don't. I was in a restaurant last week.
If I want to give money to charity, I'll give money to charity.
I totally agree with you.
If I'm going out for dinner, I just want to pay for the meal. Thanks.
I totally agree with you. Last week I was in a restaurant on the edge of Epsom Downs.
Really? Well, one of those pubs.
No, a restaurant.
Really? What's the name of it?
The rubbing house, because that's where you used to rub the horses down. You know what I mean? Before they turned it into a restaurant.
I'm not sure I'd want to go to a place that was named after where they used to rub the horses down.
No. It's great. You know, it's on the edge of Epsom Downs, very famous on Derby Day and all that kind of stuff.
You've mentioned it several times.
So anyway, so the young lady brought the.
Have you got anything important to talk about?
Hang on, she brought the bill over, so I signed it all off on the card.
Signed it?
Yeah. Well, I did the figures and all that kind of stuff, and then she said, "Oh, do you want to?"
Presumably you had the keypad thing.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
You don't sign it anymore.
So I said, this is where I got caught out. I said, look, don't worry about putting the tip on the bill.
Well, she said, I'm not worried.
I said, I'll give you that separately. She said, oh, thank you very much, sir.
Yeah.
So I gave her 40 quid. So she
How much was the bill?
170. So
how many of you were there?
2. So
that's a lot of money.
Well, yes.
Were you eating caviar or something?
No. I think a
was it the
of
drinks
wine
bill?
had been, sort of divided. Anyway, so I said to her, that's for you. She said, oh, thank you. She said, I will have to declare this to the maitre d'. I said, why?
Yeah.
She said, well, because we pool all the tips.
Yeah.
I said, well, that's why I'm giving it you, not off the bill.
So you're trying to encourage her to act in a nefarious manner.
So anyway, guess what I did?
Thereby stitching up her colleagues.
Yeah, guess what
Why
I did?
would you want to do that?
No, hang on, guess what I did?
Go on.
So I said, OK, well, hand in that £40 then as the tip to the pool, and then I slipped her another 20 and said, put that in your pocket now, which she did.
Right.
So I managed to look after her, OK?
Well, not for the cost of a good meal for 4 people in most restaurants.
Yeah, exactly.
60 quid you gave her.
I did, yeah.
You're an idiot.
No, I felt good about it. I felt
I'm
good
sure
about
you
it.
did.
I'd made her day better.
But I've said this to you before, that you make yourself feel better by handing out money because it makes you feel important. It makes you feel as if people look up to you because you're rich.
How ridiculous.
And that's why you do it. It's a vanity project for you.
No, not at all.
You don't do it out of kindness. You do it out of conceit.
No, that is utter
do.
Honestly, what a terrible thing to say.
It's true.
The milk of human kindness flows through my veins, and I like to sometimes
I
share
don't think
that.
it was the milk of human kindness that's flowing through. If you give a £60 tip.
I like to share that with the rest of the population, okay?
Really?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Okay. Now, coming up, we're going to talk to your local MP.
Yes.
Because
Paul
I want you
Scully,
to tell us in a very, very succinct manner, please, if you could, why we're going to talk to him. Because there's a problem, is there not, in our institutes of higher learning?
Well, there may be a problem. That's what we're going to investigate.
Yeah.
I mean, Paul, I know, because I know him personally, is a Brexiteer. He has teenage children of student age away at higher academic learning.
Well, one of them's in Bristol.
So one is in Bristol. Yeah. And he points out that the first thing that his daughter's hand when she gets there is 100% Remain, stop Brexit, regional rally now, Southwest, Gibraltar, march to the rally, all this kind of stuff, you know?
Well, who's she being given this stuff by?
Well, people at the university she's gone to.
Well, what's wrong with that?
Well, nothing wrong with it, providing that the balance is that somebody else is handing you a leaflet saying, we support Brexit, the democratic vote in this country said we are going to come out of Europe, support the democratic vote. None of that seems to have happened on the other side.
Well, we'll find out, because obviously there'll be many people out there who've got kids in universities who will be able to tell us precisely what their experiences are, and we'd love to hear from you, of course, if that is the situation. All you've got to do is give us a call. The number is, of course, 0344 499 1000, because it may well be that this is an isolated situation. There's quite a lot of Tory MPs jumping on this bandwagon and saying, let's give us the names of all the lecturers that are talking about Brexit.
Yeah.
Let's get the names of all of the people who are telling the Brexiteers that they're all morons. Let's get their names. Let's take their names down. It's a slightly worrying thing to want to do, as far as I'm concerned.
It's a bit of a Salem witch hunt?
Well, I think it is. A bit McCarthyist, I would say. So we'll be finding
out
from these backbench Tory MPs precisely what's going on. I might ask your man as well about your road and what state it's in, because obviously, as your local
Road's
MP,
great.
He will be very concerned about that as well.
Honestly, my constituency is it's got the
You haven't got a constituency.
The lowest crime rate of any borough in London.
I thought you didn't live in London.
I don't. On the edge of the town that I live in, on Epsom Downs.
What do you mean, Croydon?
No, not at all.
Well,
no.
either you live in London or you live in Stockbroker Belt, Surrey. Which is it?
I live in Stockbroker Belt, Surrey.
Right.
Yeah.
So the fact that your borough
Yes.
is in London...
It's not my borough. It's the borough of Paul...
but he's your local MP.
No, he's a local MP. He's a local MP.
So have you got more than one?
Well, I do have.
Well, see, this tissue of
multiple
lies,
addresses, don't I?
No. Well, you've got. Yes,
Do you know who
have.
my other MP
You can only
is?
vote in one place.
Hey,
though.
do you know who my other MP is? Seriously, down on the coast.
Who?
Fred Dynage's daughter.
Fred Dynage's daughter.
Honestly.
He's still on TV.
Exactly.
Fred Dynage. No, well, do you know when you're in Sussex, right, and you switch on the local news, Fred Dynage is doing it.
That's right. Yeah, he's about 78
He
or
must
something.
be.
I mean, he's a great guy.
Yeah, yeah.
He's still going.
Nothing personal,
But his
Fred.
daughter, whose name I think is Caroline, she's
Right.
my local MP.
Really?
And I've supported her.
She's a Tory.
I think she is. Yeah, I think she's.
You
Tory.
think she is?
Yes, that's right.
Well,
yeah.
did you vote for her?
No, because I can't vote down there because you can't vote twice.
Well,
in
how
this
have you
country.
supported her then?
In my local newspaper column, I said she was a good person.
You don't write a local newspaper column.
Well, I used to because she was Fred Dynage's daughter.
Oh, you've gone completely off the scale bonkers, haven't you, last
no,
couple of weeks?
not at all.
Anyway, we'll be checking up the facts with Mr. Parry. No doubt we might find one of them to be true between now and 4 o'clock. This is Talk Radio with the two mics.
Bit harsh.
The Two Mics on Talk Radio. We'll get you talking.
Take me on a roller coaster. Take me for an airplane ride. Take me for a six-day wonder. But don't you pull my pride side to side. What's real and fake?
This is Talk Radio. We are the two mics. We're here until 4 o'clock in the afternoon, of course, when it's time for Sam Delaney. We've got all sorts of things going on, including an Ask Porky. If you've never had Problem Solved live on air, now is your chance to do it. Porky will, of course, address almost any
Indeed.
problem that you can think of, whether it be a business problem,
Yeah.
whether it be a personal
There's
problem.
not a problem we can't solve.
That's exactly right. You just got to tweet us at Talk Radio
Yep.
or at the two mics, or of course you can text us as well. Start your message with the word talk, and it's 87222. Text will cost you 25 pence plus your standard network charge. Now we're going to talk in a moment to Paul Scully MP,
Yep.
who is of course Porky's local MP. That's a
right.
coincidence,
Yeah.
because it's Sutton and
It
Cheam,
is.
I believe,
Yep.
that he represents. He's upset because he's had a bit of a row with John Simpson, who's not one of your favourite people. He's not particularly one of my favourite people either. But apparently there is a problem in our universities where a lot of parents are complaining that their kids are being bombarded by leaflets and all sorts of propaganda about Remain rather than Brexit. But let's find out from Paul what his beef is. Paul, a very good afternoon and welcome.
Good afternoon to you. How are you?
Yeah,
Hi, Paul.
very, very well. I mean,
Great to hear from
also
you.
I'm quite staggered, given that you know Mr. Mike Parry and you, in fact, represent him in the Houses of Parliament, that you'd even be willing to come and talk to him on the radio.
That's
well,
very
this is
harsh.
it, but hey, look, I've been promising to do so for a little while, so it's good to
Very
be there.
good. Now, what exactly is your beef with the sort of higher echelons of education in this country?
Well, what happened this week was one of my colleagues wrote to each university asking them for details of people teaching Brexit and the details of the syllabus. And one of the responses that I saw to that was that it was like the thought police. And that,
Isn't
then
it
I
right?
just...
Isn't it, though, a bit like the
No,
thought police? Why
no,
do you need to know
no,
the
no.
names of the people who are lecturing people?
Because then he can engage in debate with them, presumably. I mean, I don't know. You know, there's not. He's not in government as such. He's a whip, but he's not a minister. So he's not seeking to close down debate. He's seeking to challenge it. And I think that's absolutely fair. But what actually then happened is that I just recalled that a picture that my daughter had sent to me of a leaflet that had been handed to her by her lecturer promoting a Remain rally at a university town. And actually, it's not the fact that it was Remain. I just don't think that lecturers should be handing out leaflets and pushing their political views on anyone.
But
especially because it's
lecturers
not
have
even a
always
political...
done that. But like lecturers, I mean, I remember when I was at FE College many, many years ago, my economics lecturer was a Marxist, and he was a member of the Socialist Worker Party.
Yeah, that explains
And
a lot
in-
about you.
And in fact, my response to that was to start up a Young Conservatives Club just to wind him up.
Excellent.
Well, yeah, to be fair, my old politics teacher was a Liberal, which actually made me a lifelong Conservative. So
That's
you're
Oh, there
absolutely
you
right.
are. So, I mean, it's
But-
not
but
new,
actually-
is it?
Yeah, but
No,
hang
I
on,
think
Paul.
The point is, actually, she's an engineer. She was on an engineering course,
Right,
So
okay.
it's just so not related to the degree course at all. And she's paying good money through her tuition fees for it.
Yeah.
And I think when you're paying for something, you should be a consumer and actually challenge the fact that he's not actually doing his
But hang
main
on,
job.
Yeah,
But
hang
you're
on, Paul. Aren't we here talking about an abuse of power? Because lecturers, teachers, they have a huge audience, and that is the class of 30 or 32 or class of 16 if it's a university lecturer. They impose their views on them. We're talking here about an abuse of power and a lack of balance, aren't we, in a political debate which has gripped the country?
Well, look, I think if it's a teacher in a school, you could be talking about abuse of power. I think lecturers, you are talking adult to adult, so I'm not sure abuse as such, but I think it's definitely something that needs to be challenged.
But is anybody handing out leaflets saying, by the way, let's go for Brexit, we voted for it democratically, so we must push it through?
Well, no,
is anybody on the campus...
They don't have any demos because they've already won.
Is anybody on the campus handing out those sort of leaflets?
I don't know, but frankly, knowing the university, I very much doubt it, frankly.
Yeah, exactly.
But surely the problem as well with this, Paul, is that what you're asking for is not the what you claim, which is to encourage debate, but to shut it down. I mean, you're talking about Chris Heaton Harris. I mean, hasn't he got enough people to debate with in the House of Parliament without having to randomly go and send letters and emails to people he doesn't know?
Well, no, because there's genuine concern from university lecturers and academics about Brexit, and that's fine to sort of challenge what happens to international students, research, and these kind of things. And so we need to have that debate. It's not just with MPs; it's with the country as a whole and each specific industry. I'm not looking to shut down any debate. I just think you need to have it in the right place and the right time. And I don't think. In the middle of engineering lectures is the right time to be doing this sort of stuff.
That's right. Now, Paul, talking about the age of person you're talking about, students, right? You've got your daughter there at Bristol University. The Tories very nearly lost the last election because Jeremy Corbyn identified a huge pool of voters that nobody else had identified before, and they were students, right?
Yep.
What are the Tory party going to do to try and counter that in future? Because they are now all Corbynistas, and they regard Jeremy Corbyn as Che Guevara.
Well, absolutely. Well, what we need to do is we need to be offering policies that are optimistic, that are hopeful, that meet people's aspirations, but that are not gimmicks. And I think it's really easy for Jeremy Corbyn to be promising the world, and he's been caught out on what he was talking about, refunding everyone's student debt. But
it's just as well that he's not very competent at it, isn't it? Because, Paul, if the Labour Party had a decent leader and an electable leader, the Tories could be out of work for a generation, because some of the stuff that the Tory party's been doing, like abandoning some of its older voters, abandoning some of the small businesses that are now being taxed to the high heavens. Yeah. You'd be losing for the next 20 years.
Well, I've ran small businesses before I was elected, and so it's something that I certainly challenged the Chancellor about when he talked in his budget, his spring budget, about things like dividends and things for small businesses, which discourage entrepreneurs. And I think we do need to have that sort of internal debate. But there is a big challenge when you're talking about young people, because you've got to balance. We're still spending more as a country than we're actually bringing in tax. So you've only got a finite pot, and you've got to balance the needs of older people with social care and these kind of things, and healthcare and the like, and young people with tuition and getting on the housing ladder. It's a difficult balance to achieve, but we've got to actually, I think, do better in articulating what we want to do and be a bit more optimistic about it.
Definitely, and it's getting the message over, Paul. Communication these days is so important, and you kind of wonder whether politicians that you work with are right up there with social networking, because somebody's taken advantage of that social networking situation to steal votes, aren't they?
No, you're absolutely right. I have a theory that actually opposition parties tend to do better with whatever the media of the day is. So we were actually pretty good when we were in blogging, when blogs were the latest thing, and then now Twitter is the latest thing and the like. And the Labour Party and the left have stolen a march on us. There's no doubt about that.
That's right. Yeah.
But again, as I say, it's about gimmicking, about not making sure it's not a gimmick or trying to get down and cool with the kids and that kind of stuff, but just engaging them properly, talking to them about the things that they want to talk about, and on the medium that they actually that they use themselves as well.
Sure. Now, Paul, all this is very, very important stuff, but I've got an even more important question to ask you just before we let you go. Being as you are the representative in Parliament of Mr Mike Parry, he said to me that you were very helpful to him at one point or other when somebody had dumped an old broken down van in my street, and it was there for about 4 weeks before anybody could get rid of it.
And then I rang up Mr Scully and he'd gone within 48 hours.
Is this true?
This is true. So I thought he was going to say I bought him a pint of the Cock and Bull, but
I did that as well. Yeah, that was
absolutely.
That was the bribe.
Well, so you actually hang out socially with Parry, do you?
Well, occasionally.
Parry and Scully. It sounds like the X-Files.
He drinks in the pub right opposite my office. So it's
true. So you must see quite a lot of him then.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That's a bit harsh. Are you suggesting Mr Scully spends all his time in the pub?
No, when he looks out his window, he sees you walking in and walking out.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah, unfortunately, Mike has to sit there and look at a big poster with my face on it.
Yeah,
so,
when it comes to...
this is why he drinks. He drinks to forget.
When it comes to public houses, he's very much a Remainer, Paul, I think you'll find.
That's a bit harsh.
But thank you very
Paul,
much
thanks very much indeed for your time.
Paul
Great
Scully, there, who is, of course, Porky's local MP. We may have to get him on for an extended session. Right.
Extended session of what?
Of anything.
Oh, I
just to
see.
get
I
some
thought you were
more-
talking about pubs and sessions.
Some more dirt on you. We're going to talk more about pubs later on.
There is no dirt on me.
Oh, really? Yeah. Is that what you think?
Yeah.
Or is that what you're trying to lie about?
That's what I know.
Shocking. We're going to talk about pubs later on, the names of pubs, because there's a new survey out which tells you why certain pubs are named the way they are, right?
That's right, the Crown.
You're going to be telling us all about it. Well, there's other ones as well, not just the Crown.
The Two Mikes on Talk Radio. We'll get you talking.
This is Talk Radio. We are the Two Mikes. We want to hear from some of you students out there because, of course, if you're getting all sorts of propaganda shoved down your throat by your lecturers, isn't that what happens when you go to university anyway? 03444991000. A couple of tweets for you, Mr. Parry.
Yep.
Johnny says, never mind a career in science. I would make more money following Porky around pretending to be a waiter.
Yeah, well...
Which I think is probably quite true.
Do you know that happened to me once? What happened was I went to a football match at Wembley, the new Wembley Stadium, and it was one of the first 2 or 3 internationals.
Right.
And I got invited by somebody important,
Yes.
so I was in the FA suite.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Right.
So I went up to the bar, which
Yes.
is right in the middle of the room. It's a
like a circular bar.
well, it's quadrangle actually, but it's right in the middle of the room.
Square,
You know what I mean? Yeah, square. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, quadrangle.
What's a quadrangle?
Well, it's an oblong. It's an oblong, right, not square. Okay. So anyway, I said to this guy, I said, could I have a large glass of Pinot Grigio, please? And he said, I'm sorry, sir, we're only serving red and blush today.
What?
I said,
What, a bar that wasn't serving white wine?
Exactly.
No
said,
wonder the FA's all to cock. I mean, they can't even organise a
No,
bar.
No, I said, no, you don't understand me. I said, I just want a glass of white wine. That's all I want.
Right.
No, I'm sorry, we've only got rosé or red. I said, why?
Yeah.
I said, well, that's the delivery order that came down.
What?
So I went and found somebody in the
Yeah.
FA, and I said, look, this is idiotic.
Right.
You know, I want a glass of white wine.
Yeah.
Don't worry, we'll sort it for you.
Right.
Anyway, about 5 minutes
amazing,
later,
isn't it?
Yeah, 5 minutes later, a waiter comes to the table
Yeah.
and says, "Are you Mr. Parry?" I
Yeah.
said, "Yes." And I've got your bottle of white wine. I said, "Thank you."
Well, like as if it had been somehow
Yeah.
retrieved
Yeah,
from,
yeah,
the
yeah.
long lost box.
Yeah, I said, "Thank you very much indeed." So he opened it and he poured me a glass. I said, "Right, thanks a lot."
Yeah.
And then he stepped back 2 paces from my seat,
Yeah.
holding the white wine.
Right.
So I didn't realise this.
Right.
So
Did he not have a little tray or something? Or a
He had a
plate?
tray. The wine was on a silver tray.
Right.
He had it. So anyway,
So he's holding that.
he's holding
Yeah.
it, but he's standing 2 paces behind me.
Right.
Anyway, I then saw Sir Geoff Hurst
Yeah.
on a table 2 tables away
Right.
and waved, because
Yeah.
I used to work with Geoff,
Uh-huh.
when I was important in football and all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. And he waved, and I said, I'll come over. So I got up to go over and see
Yeah.
him, and the waiter with the white wine followed me to Geoff Hurst's table,
Right.
Sir Geoff Hurst's table.
Right.
And
He just kept following you around.
well, I didn't know he was following me around,
Yeah.
and Sir Geoff said,
and did he fill your glass
yeah,
whenever it became?
he kept filling it.
needing to be
Whenever
charged?
it got down to 1/3
Yeah, yeah.
full, he filled it up.
Right.
And I said, "You won't believe this." I said, "This is my personal wine waiter."
Right.
He said, "No, you're joking." He said, "I'm a Knight of the Realm. I scored a hat-trick in a World
Yeah.
Cup, and I don't get my personal wine waiter."
Yeah.
I said, "Well, for some known reason, I have, because
Did
I
you
asked
ever
for white."
find out why they
No.
didn't have any white wine?
No, I never found out. But I mean,
That's ridiculous,
I
isn't
know, it was ridiculous. But anyway, there you go.
Absolute madness.
Right.
Now, here's one from Patrick. He says, Porky with a wallet, MG. It would only gather cobwebs through lack of use.
I don't think so.
Well, apparently not. I mean, the one
No.
thing that I can absolutely attest to
Yeah.
is that Porky wastes more money than most people even make.
Waste money.
You know, you just give it,
honestly.
you hand it out to people.
No, I don't hand it out to people. I try to.
You just admitted giving
spread
£60,
munificence, you know.
£60
Yeah.
of a tip
Yeah,
to a
well,
waitress.
Well, that's because I was, just trying. Oh, by the way, talking about wine. Have we touched on the fact that the grape crops in most of the world are short this year?
Well, I mean, we knew this was going to come, didn't we? Because of the bad weather in the summer, where it was very, very hot in lots of places. I think it was the Sahara effect. That was coming up through central Mediterranean countries, and also very wet spring.
And
So
I've got the
apparently-
figures to terrify you.
Have you?
The
There's going to be a
terrifi-
shortage of Prosecco, I'm told.
There's going to be a fall of the grape crop by 8%.
Right.
And that equates to 24.7 billion less litres of wine.
Really?
24.7 billion
Right.
litres
Well,
of wine
you know what's
are
gonna
going to
happen.
be short this
You know what's
year.
going to happen? I'll just put the prices up, won't it?
The price of wine could rise as a result with the International Organisation of Vine and Wine.
Vine and
That's
Wine?
what it's called. It's called International Organisation of Vine and Wine, saying it is extreme weather. The drop in production could wipe out stocks built up since the financial crisis of 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Europe was hardest hit, Wine output forecast to fall by 23% in Italy alone.
Well, that's where all the Prosecco comes from.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yep. 19% in France.
Yeah, where
and
the champagne comes from.
Yeah, and 15% in Spain.
Shocking.
But outside of Europe, in Argentina, don't cry
Yeah, don't
for
sing.
me. Yeah,
It's too early.
And Australia, they are going to have to make up the lost resources in Europe by importing New World grapes.
Yeah, well, that's not a bad thing.
Well,
Not a bad thing at all.
but it's more expensive to get them over here. That's the problem.
Well, not really, no.
So prices are going to go up.
No, that's not true, but they probably will. They'll use it as an excuse. Now, a couple of tweets here on the subject of universities.
Yes.
One from Ash, who says, universities are overwhelming students with anti-Brexit and anti-Trump rhetoric instead of the actual subjects they're enrolled in.
Do we know that?
Well,
Do
I
we know
don't
that?
know. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I would be surprised, I suppose, if the majority of university lecturers were not more leaning towards being anti-Trump.
Well, the whole of
and leaning
academia
towards being...
is left-wing, isn't it?
Well, not all of it.
I think it is.
I don't think all of it is.
I think it is.
Well, Ross says this, both the university news today is misleading. Us lecturers also promote critical thinking. We give views, but we don't want blind agreement.
Okay.
So I think a lot of situations are... I mean, you can't really stop a lecturer if he wants to go out and demonstrate about, Brexit, and he wants to hand out leaflets promoting that
Yeah, but
demonstration.
providing
Why
it
should you stop
allows
him?
his students access to the contrary argument. You know, there's nothing wrong
Yeah,
with that.
but I'm sure they do. I mean, the whole point about going to university is you get into arguments with
You're
people.
supposed to, yeah. But
That's
I mean,
the point.
don't they ban some organisations that promote certain political issues?
Well, I think they have done in
Yeah,
the past,
yeah.
and they want safe spaces and all
Exactly.
that kind of thing.
Exactly.
But I don't think that
there's
they
one
are...
guy who used to be a head teacher, and he's now made a fortune out of claiming to be the only right-wing teacher in Britain or
Really?
something. You know the guy I'm talking about?
No.
Yeah, he writes features in sort of, papers like the Times and the Daily Mail
Does
and
he?
that kind of stuff, and
Yeah.
the Express, and he says he was sort of barracked out of the profession because most of the teaching profession is inherently left-wing.
Right. Well, we're going to have a conversation
Which is
with...
fine because some professions like stockbroking
Yeah.
are inherently right-wing.
Well,
I suppose.
you would find that, I suppose, as a general rule. But I can imagine that you would also, if you go through any university, sort of staff list, you'll find people that vote Tory, people that vote Liberal,
Yeah.
people that vote Labour.
Yeah.
You want to have them all in there, don't you?
Yeah, I suppose so.
Really?
Yes.
And
I
also,
suppose
if
so.
you're a young person going to higher education, it doesn't really make any odds if you're being bombarded with one particular form of information. It's like I was saying to your MP.
Yeah.
The guy who was the communist actually, made me think more about the
Yeah.
complete opposite of that.
I was a communist for about 10 minutes,
10 minutes?
at the King's School Chester.
Really?
Because they didn't have a candidate to stand, and I thought I would. But I didn't really understand communism.
No.
As soon as I found out what it was all about,
So you stood for what, though?
the...
School prefect or something?
No. When a general election took place, we had an election inside the school as
Oh,
well.
did you?
You see
Right.
what I mean?
Oh,
So
okay.
you had all sorts of daft candidates,
Yeah, yeah.
But once
Why didn't you go for the raving loony party?
Well,
instead?
they weren't around in those
That'd
days.
be more fitting.
They weren't around in those days. And as soon as I found out what it was all about, i.e., there's never been a successful communist government
Yeah.
or regime. Or...
Well, I wouldn't say that.
No, there hasn't. Well, name one.
Well, I mean, the Soviet Union was pretty successful.
No,
as
it
was
wasn't.
China.
The Soviet Union was incredibly unsuccessful.
Well, China, for a start, is incredibly successful.
Only because they have a capitalist economy
Yeah.
on a communist,
still a communist
political
government.
framework.
It's a communist government.
Yeah, you say that, but they do not pursue
I say
Marxist
that. You say the
policies
time, by the
in
way.
their economy.
Yeah, well, never mind that.
You know,
You're gonna
Lenin
run out of time.
Marxism means starvation, death,
Yeah.
ruin,
Right.
and
A bit like the Tories,
and,
then.
and eventually jail. That's what
Really?
it. Yeah, that's what it
Yeah, well,
represents.
exactly like the Tories.
No, not really.
This is Talk
We're not
Radio.
locking people
Stop
up, are we?
talking.
The two mics on Talk Radio. We'll get you talking.
This is Talk Radio. We are the two mics. Ask
Yep.
Porky coming up a little bit later on. We've got the Porky quiz because we're on tomorrow here
Yes.
as well, 1 to 4 in the afternoon.
We have.
The Porky quiz is going to be a selection of questions from Trivial Pursuit.
That's
if
right,
I'm not
it is.
mistaken.
Absolutely, because occasionally I have to go to a neutral source
Yeah.
for the quiz to make sure that your infiltration of the quizmasters is broken.
So basically, the quizmasters have been rerouted.
Well,
have they not?
Well, I have to push them out occasionally because I know that you have such a go at them. Listen, do you remember last week we were talking
Last
about...
week?
Last
What have you
week,
turned into a stockbroker
No,
belt
no,
Tory now
no,
as
no.
well?
Last week we were talking about the Kennedy family.
Yes.
And
Well,
you
we were
said...
talking about that on our other podcast, weren't we?
Well, on our podcast, which
Yeah.
many people who are listening to us now will have listened to.
Yes.
And you asked me what was the source of the Kennedys' wealth. and I said to you, well, and you said,
Well, we
it's
were kind of
bootlegging.
debating that. It was bootlegging at the beginning, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
can I just tell you this? I
Yes.
decided to research that because it's such
Really?
a fascinating story.
Okay,
yeah.
well, that's good.
Joseph Patrick Joe Kennedy Sr. Was an ambitious son of a prosperous Boston saloon keeper who gave birth to Joe Kennedy, who was the patriarch of the family that we know now, father of
the one who became
President
the
John
ambassador to the Court of St. James and all that.
But did you know that far from being a rags to riches story, the poor boy from Ireland, he actually went to Harvard?
Yes.
Yes, his father.
Well, because he was quite wealthy, right?
Well, his father was a bar owner. You know, he owned a number of bars in Massachusetts, right?
Yeah.
So he went to Harvard. That's where he met Rose Fitzgerald, the mother of John F. Kennedy.
And was she from a quite wealthy family as well?
She was the daughter of the mayor of Boston.
Okay, so that's
Right?
quite a big political family already, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Married into a political
Now,
family. Okay?
those of us who are of a cynical nature might say
Yeah.
that he was looking just for exactly that type of person to
I'm
marry.
certain he was.
So that he was already then plugged in to the political system locally.
I'm absolutely certain he was,
Yeah.
okay? He made his first fortune through insider trading.
Right.
But it wasn't illegal in those days. He was just smarter than the other traders in Boston.
Well, that's all right then.
Yeah, exactly. He also
slavery wasn't illegal either at one time.
No. He was also a master of stock manipulation.
Fantastic.
Which again,
so
was
he's basically a criminal.
Gordon Gekko went to jail for the crimes that Joe Kennedy.
Well, Gordon Gekko was a fictional character.
Yeah,
of course.
Exactly. But to Joe Kennedy, it wasn't illegal.
Michael
in those
Milken,
days.
you could have said.
I could have done.
Yeah.
He manipulated the stock pools in which traders conspired to inflate a stock's price, selling out just before the bubble burst.
Right. So this would have been before the Wall Street crash.
Well, I'm just about to say to you, he brilliantly pulled out of stocks early in 1929 and sold short following the Wall Street crash,
So he was
making
fortunate.
a huge fortune while his rivals lost everything, many of whom threw themselves out of the windows of their offices on Wall Street.
So clearly he had the inside knowledge of what was going on.
Exactly, exactly. So it says here, it is thus ironic that Franklin D. Roosevelt, 4 times President of the United States, later made Kennedy the first chairman of the Securities and Exchange Commission.
Right.
It was like putting, the tiger in charge of the chicken, so to speak. You know what I mean?
The tiger in charge of the
fox
chickens?
in charge of the chicken.
Where's
coop.
your tiger from?
I don't know. And Joe Kennedy was given a mandate to end market manipulation and dissemination of false information about securities, something he'd made his fortune by doing.
So when in the sort of scale of the time here is prohibition then? Because he did get himself involved in prohibition.
Let me tell you, in the mid-20s, Kennedy became a film mogul and had a dalliance, it's described as, with Gloria Swanson, who was one of the most famous actresses in the world.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's a sort of Harvey Weinstein aspect to him as well.
The Harvey Weinstein aspect to him. He sold out his interest in the film business, earning himself £5 million just when the industry was collapsing.
He's a very lucky guy.
Yeah, he was very lucky. Well, he's probably a smart guy. He was collapsing because of the changeover from non-talkies to talkie movies, okay?
Right.
And he got in there. Kennedy became, and this guy was a real operator. Kennedy, we're still talking here about Joe Kennedy, the father of President John F. Kennedy, became even wealthier during World War II through property, and in 1945, he struck a deal that was to be the cornerstone of the Kennedy fortune. He bought what was called the Merchandise Mart in Chicago, which I told you about actually last week.
You said he owned a shopping mall or two,
a wholesale emporium that had cost at least $30 million to build, but he bought it for $12.5 million. So he got it for...
That's a lot of money in those days, isn't it?
It was a hell of a lot of money. It was $1.25 billion.
Yes.
But he bought it for less than half of what it was worth.
The problem is you've skipped over all the Prohibition stuff, though.
Well, I'm going to tell you about it in a minute.
I'm
going to tell you about it in a minute. By the 50s, the annual gross rent exceeded the purchase price. So he bought it for $2.5 million. 20 years later, it was earning $15 million a year in rent alone. Now, in 1957, Fortune magazine declared Kennedy one of the richest men in America with assets, this is in 1957, of $300 million.
Wow.
Okay?
Yeah.
Joe Kennedy was what Americans have always called an operator.
Yeah.
Somebody who sails as close to the wind as possible with his business, but never, ever got done for his dealings. The one time he might have crossed the line is during Prohibition. It is claimed that he was an out-and-out bootlegger, and in 1973, mob boss Frank Costello said in a memoir that he and Kennedy had been bootlegging partners and made tens of millions in that business.
Right.
After Prohibition, he became involved in the liquor trade. He founded Somerset Importers in partnership with the congressman called James Roosevelt II a descendant of Roosevelt, the president.
Yeah.
And the business acted as the exclusive, get this, they bought the exclusive import rights as US agents for Hague and Hague Scotch whisky,
Right.
Gordon's Dry Gin and Dewar's Scotch. It is said they had assembled a large inventory of stock to be sold at a great profit when Prohibition was repealed. They were stocking up huge amounts
Yeah.
of gin, whiskey and other
And buying
spirits.
it presumably very cheaply.
They're buying it for nothing because it was illegal.
Yeah.
You couldn't sell it.
Right.
But they had political influence knowing when Prohibition was given up. By the time Joe Kennedy died on November the 18th, 1969, he had founded a political dynasty. Today, the Kennedy fortune, and I told you it was running out, right?
Yeah.
I was completely wrong.
Were you?
Is worth...
How surprising.
Yes, is worth more than $1 billion
Yeah.
To the family.
So there's still plenty of money rolling
Still
around.
plenty of money rolling
Well,
around,
of course,
man.
what we're waiting for now, this
Yeah.
week, and I don't know whether it's going to happen today
Yeah.
or whether it's going to happen tomorrow or maybe not at all, is Donald Trump authorising the release of these new
Absolutely.
Kennedy documents.
That's right.
Which we don't really think it's going to show us anything
To
that
see
we
if it
didn't
will
know.
shed new light on the assassination
I'm
of John
not-
F.
not
K.
really
But
expecting
I don't
it
think there's
to do that.
anything more to know.
No.
We went through this. He was shot in the head by
Yeah.
not a gunman in the book depository. End of.
Well, it's not, though, because unfortunately, and you can
Yeah.
never really, necessarily put any stop by this, but a majority of Americans believe there's more to the story.
Yeah, but,
they don't believe that Lee Harvey Oswald acted on his own. They don't believe that there was a one-man
Yeah.
shooting situation.
Yes.
That at least somebody else must have been helping him out, even if they weren't actually firing a gun.
But hang on, you're talking about a nation of people here who think that nobody ever went to the moon
Yeah.
and it was all done on a
well,
film
it's not
set.
an entire nation.
Right,
That's
you're
not an
talking
entire
here about a
nation.
nation who thinks that the remains of a load of Martians are still locked up in, what is it, Area 56 or whatever it's
51.
called. 51, Area
Yeah.
51, right.
Where's Area 56?
Well, it must be 5 down for Area 51, I suppose.
yeah, just keep going.
Yeah, that's
Turn
right.
left at the Grand
That's right.
Canyon.
You're talking here about a nation who voted in a president who is still drawing up plans to build a wall between.
He's building it. No, he's
America
actually
and
building it
Well,
now.
no, he's not building it. Yeah,
No, he
because
is.
they haven't signed off the design of the wall.
but no, they've started it.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Yeah.
it could be anybody making it. You know, you just have no idea
Yeah.
whether it's actually ever going to be put up properly.
Absolutely, and this is a nation also whose president thought it was a very good idea
Yeah.
to invade countries in the Middle East, smash them to pieces,
Yeah.
and make 300 million people homeless who are drifting around the world now trying
you
to
talking
find somewhere
about
to live. George Bush.
Oh, George Bush Jr.
Junior, yeah, absolutely.
Well, at least he didn't do what his dad's been
No,
doing.
he didn't. No,
That's a shocking
his
story.
father has been accused
Eh?
of fondling young ladies
That. Yeah, well,
from
fondling one of them.
from the more than one apparently
Yeah.
from the safety of his wheelchair.
Isn't that awful?
It's not on, is
It's
it?
not a pleasant
I used to
thought.
quite like George H. Bush because he made the famous quote about Bill Clinton,
Right.
didn't he? You know, those bozos. My Doug Millie knows more about foreign policy than those bozos.
Yeah.
And he was talking about Bill Clinton
Was he?
and my friend George Stephanopoulos.
Yeah, but Bill Clinton came after George Bush Sr., didn't he?
Yes, yeah. Well,
Because he lost the election
He
to
lost the
him.
election to him.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
So they weren't really bozos after all.
From the back of the train, do you
Yeah.
not remember? I mean, George Bush didn't go out campaigning against Clinton because he thought Clinton was a juvenile
Yeah.
and nobody would ever vote for him.
Right.
And then in the last few days, somebody said, look, I think you better get out there because
Right.
Clinton seems
It's
to be a
actually-
massive
yeah.
support. So he got on a train and he did the old train route, standing on the back of the train, saying, if you vote for me, don't vote for Clinton.
Really?
My Doug Millie knows more about foreign policy than those bozos. And then his son,
Yeah, cheerio.
talking about foreign policy,
Yeah.
2 presidential terms later, went around, smashed up the Middle East.
Yeah.
And we're all paying the price.
Yeah, well, indeed. It's a very simplistic form of foreign policy explanation, but I suppose some of it might be considered to
Exactly.
be correct.
Exactly.
My favourite thing that George Bush Sr. actually did was when he came out and said he didn't like broccoli. Do you remember he was attacked by the broccoli lobby?
Was he?
The broccoli
No, I don't remember
growers
that,
of the
no.
United States of America.
Oh,
Somehow
really?
it came up.
Oh, really?
And he was out in
Well,
the Rose
well,
Garden.
they accused him of killing off the broccoli industry.
Well, yeah, because he was out in the Rose Garden, and I can't remember how it even came up, but somebody asked him a question about, would you have broccoli with that, or something like that, or what do you say about, the problems in the broccoli growing business, or
That's
something
right,
like that?
yeah.
And he said, I've never liked broccoli. He said, I'm now the president of the United States, and I don't have to eat what I don't want to eat.
Yeah.
And I'm never going to eat any broccoli in my life.
And
it completely
the broccoli
wiped
industry.
the broccoli industry off the map.
That's not good.
Nobody bought it
Not
anymore.
good. Yeah.
Now, a couple of tweets for you. Minor says,
Okay.
my other half just completed her Masters, and a left-wing anti-Tory and pro-Brexit were the only views promulgated.
Really?
Yeah.
Left-wing and anti-Tory. Yeah, well,
Left-wing
there's a lot of that.
anti-Tory and pro-Brexit.
A lot of that goes on. I mean, a lot of young people, right, who are, love and peace, man.
Yeah.
Ringo Starr signs off every tweet that he sends out, love and peace.
Well, yeah, but Ringo Starr's a sort of special case. He doesn't have to worry, does he?
Well, he's a
By the
Beatle,
way, have you
isn't
seen
he?
that picture today of old Marianne Faithfull with
Do you know?
with Keith?
utterly...
Isn't that an amazing
You know the
picture?
story behind it? Utterly fantastic. They're on their European tour,
Yeah.
and they end up in the same city, I think it's Budapest or
Yeah.
somewhere, as Marianne Faithfull.
Yeah.
So Keith goes along to see her,
Yeah.
and they're sitting there talking. 50 years ago, when Marianne Faithfull was the girlfriend of Mick Jagger.
The girl in the carpet.
Yes, that's right, yeah.
Yeah.
When she was the girlfriend of Mick Jagger, Keith Richards got in there for one night only.
Yeah.
And they
That's such a nice way of putting it.
yes, and
Such a romantic at heart,
and Keith was asked about what was it like meeting Marianne Faithfull after all these years. He said it was fantastic.
Yeah.
He said, we only ever spent one night together. He said, and it was very special. And she actually endorsed it and said it was the most special night of my life.
Really?
So when when Jagger and Keith Richards next get on the stage together, you might.
I don't really think they're going to care about that.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Mick Jagger apparently has got a huge ego.
He does have a huge ego.
Yeah, and to be told that, he was not actually the most special night ever in Marianne Faithfull's history,
Yeah.
I think will hurt him badly.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we've run out of time, so
We
we
certainly
can't talk
have.
about that anymore, but
No.
we will revisit it later on in the show. We are the Two Mics. This is Talk Radio.
The Two Mics on Talk Radio.
We'll get you talking.
Good afternoon. We are the Two Mics. This is, of course, Talk Radio. Ask Porky coming up a little bit later on. If you've never had a problem solved live on air, now is your chance to do it. We've got a lot of very good questions, but you've still got time to get a few in. You can tweet them to us at the Two Mics or at Talk Radio. You can text them to us, of course, at 87222. Start your message with the word talk. If you really want to get adventurous, you can even call us as well. We might even do you live on the air. 0344 499 1000. You're listening to the Two Mics on Talk Radio.
The 21st century dream team of dialogue, debate, and discourse. The Two Mics on Talk Radio. We'll get you talking.
Now, Mr. Parry,
Yes.
I've got a book here which was
Okay.
handed to me shortly before we started the show.
Yes.
In which there are some facts about you, which I'm going to reveal to
Facts
you
about me?
a little bit later on in
Well,
the
hang
show.
on, whose book is it?
I can't tell you that at the moment,
Oh.
but I've been handed it in confidence.
Right.
So I'm going to be reading you a couple of passages from the book.
And I'm sufficiently important to have been included in this book, am I?
Apparently so.
Right,
Apparently
okay,
so.
okay.
It's obviously a work of non-fiction.
Yes.
So
yes.
it's a true story. It's a sort of biography-style book.
Biography style book, okay.
Because I've been meaning to talk to you for a while about some things that have been written about you on Facebook as well.
Yeah.
But I
Very
haven't
harsh.
been able to reveal
Well,
those
I've
to
got a
you yet.
Facebook account, but I don't know where it is.
People keep urging me to get you onto Facebook,
Well,
and I
people-
say to people, well, you're already on Facebook, but unfortunately you're not quite sure how to access it.
I keep getting these messages saying 19 new communications on Facebook and 4 new followers or something, you know.
Okay.
But I don't know where it is.
Okay.
Somebody
Well,
set
it's
it
on
up for me.
Facebook.
Yeah, I know, but I don't know. I don't know what the
you know
password
what?
is.
I think what's happened is that you've had your social media set up by somebody who was
I
quite
have.
savvy.
I have.
Because what they've done is link your Twitter with your Facebook. So whenever you send a tweet out,
Yes.
it's reproduced as a
Oh,
Facebook
is it?
post. Yeah.
Oh, right, okay, yeah.
But I don't
yeah.
look at it either because we've got the Two Mics account.
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree.
And we've got somebody that runs that. So,
Yeah.
but anyway, we'll talk about that a
We
little bit
certainly
later
will.
on because we've got a very important guest to speak to now.
Oh, yes.
Dr. Sylvia Turbeck,
Excellent.
who is a lecturer in psychology at the University of Plymouth.
Right.
A very fine establishment where I'm sure they don't do anything like push propaganda about anti-Brexit down anybody's throat.
No.
But she is going to be telling us about why psychopaths are good for society.
I know, amazing, isn't it?
Dr. Turbeck, a very good afternoon to you.
Yes, good afternoon.
Thank you
Yeah,
very
hi,
much.
Doc.
I'm hoping that I'm pronouncing your name correctly. You say psychopaths are good for society, are they?
No, that's not quite right. I say psychopathic traits for a start. So that's a little bit of a difference. That means just some elements of a psychopath, not totally being a
So
psychopath.
which are good psychopathic traits?
Yes.
Yeah, so, for example, and this has been written about before, so imagine you were a surgeon and you would have to, you have to operate on a person, but you were so squeamish, you couldn't see blood, you felt such a strong and pathetic response that you couldn't harm them to help them. So therefore, maybe in that case, if you weren't quite so caring, that would be useful.
I see. So are these the sort of people that when you walk into a room and you're confronted by a person who's a psychopath, you get the feeling, I'm not going to mess with this person. Because the trouble with psychopaths is they're rather unpredictable, aren't they? One minute they can be quite
very
normal.
charming, usually.
Yeah, quite normal. And the next minute, they pick up the ashtray, they smash it on the table, and they stick the jagged, broken edge of the ashtray into your jugular vein.
We're not talking about your local Weatherspoons, you know.
No, but the doc finds this very funny, but I mean, quite...
Yeah, sorry. No, that was a very vivid illustration.
Exactly, but if that happened to me, I'd be quite upset.
True, yes. So, but was any sort of thing, which on the mere face might seem negative. So there could be, in some situations, positive aspects. So even... For example, if sadness, you could say, oh, being sad is terrible and wish I was just happy all the time. But maybe in some situations, being sad is helpful too, or being a bit anxious. It could be, do you see what I mean? And in this, but specifically what we were researching here were cases of morality.
Yes.
So imagine this for the two Mikes.
Yes.
Mike, what would you do, say Mike number one?
That'll be me.
Mike, would you think it's morally acceptable to kill one person if that would save 5?
Oh, yes, absolutely. But unfortunately for you, the other Mike says I have no moral compass.
None whatsoever. So what's your challenge to me, Doc? Mike number 2.
So with this, Mike number 1 says yes. Mike number 2 says no.
Oh no! I would say kill more than 5. Honestly, if you can say.
Why do you want to kill more than 5?
I mean, the point is, Doc, I am a Christian, right? But if I was a member, and I do not believe in taking anybody else's life because I think only God should do that. But if I was in the SAS and somebody said, take that guy out, shoot him, because he has already killed 30 people and he will kill another 30, I would take him out on the basis that is a good and proper thing to do. Now,
Right.
Yeah, okay, now...
Well, you can't be a Christian who doesn't believe in killing and be in the SAS.
Now, Doc, can I ask you this? You mentioned psychopaths and anxiety. Now, how about this? I get very anxious about things sometimes. For instance, I constantly worry about poverty, that all my wealth will disappear. And I mean, does that make me a psychopath because I constantly worry about it?
I don't think so, Mike. No.
No? So why am I worried?
It just makes you selfish.
No, it doesn't. No. I mean, if I go poor, I can't pay my cleaner, Doc. You see, I'm concerned about other people.
Yes. So that's very good that you worry about poverty. But what was that question?
No, but he doesn't worry about anybody else's poverty. He just worries about his own poverty.
Well, my own poverty comes first, I think. But on the psychopathic trait, Doc, isn't it a bit difficult for you to go around sort of, broadcasting the virtues of psychopaths, because most of us relate psychopaths to people like, the Yorkshire Ripper or the Boston Strangler.
Or
Hitler or Stalin.
No, but you see, I don't, because I've studied these things before, Dr. Turbeck, and many surveys have pointed to the fact that most successful people are psychopaths to one degree or another. If you are a success in business or in a sport or in politics or in journalism, as we were in Fleet Street, you don't get on unless you're a bit of a psychopath.
The thing, though, is as well that I don't... so the problem is, listen to this, Mike.
Okay.
In our society, we don't really know what is moral. So if the psychopath says, right, so I kill 1 to save 5, now is this the optimal moral solution? Maybe it's not. So we don't even know if they actually are making a good moral choice. They might be making a bad moral choice. Yeah. Because the debate here, Mike, is actually really what's morally right and wrong. Maybe it's always wrong to kill 1 to save 5. We don't know. This is a very old philosophical question which we haven't answered.
Yeah.
So, no. Yes, exactly.
Well, see, I think morality is in the eye of the beholder. I think depending on where you live and where in the world you are, morality is very different. For example, if you live in Saudi Arabia, morality dictates that if you steal from someone, you get your hand cut off.
That's a very interesting point.
Thank you,
Mike. And Mike, there is so in psychology. Do you think, so we sometimes think, are there very worldwide unique moral values? Something where, so for example, some killing an innocent, or can you think of a thing that worldwide is seen as morally wrong?
Yeah. Well,
what about something like abortion, for example?
Do you think that's all over the world regarded morally wrong? Do you think?
Well, no, in some places
I think
in
it's.
some places it's not.
I think it's. No, I don't think it's ever regarded as morally correct.
No,
in any situation.
No, but the execution of the abortion has a different slant altogether. Doc, can I ask you about this? We have a killer in this country who was a psychopath called Ian Brady, who died recently, and now nobody will handle his ashes for the funeral because he was a nasty, horrible, vicious, brutal child killer. Okay, but he said, because you've just said that, where do you draw the line on moral values? He said, well, I believed in existentialism. Therefore, I can do anything I want in life. I'm not answerable to anybody, and I pay the price for my own decisions. I mean, how can anybody on Earth possibly pursue that sort of ridiculous, line of thinking?
And what's the question?
Yeah, what's the question?
Well, the question is, you said...
doesn't understand what you're talking about.
No, you do. What you said is that you have to gauge sometimes whether moral values can be different in different situations. But there are some situations where no moral value can be applied.
So what you think it's absolutely no question, the answer.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah, so... In philosophy, it's actually long been debated. Is there a unique moral truth where we all agree on that this is right and this is wrong? I don't know. Or is it more relative? Is it more that it depends on the person, it depends on the situation, or is it not? So I don't know the answer to this. Nobody knows the answer to this. These are deep philosophical questions on the table to debate. Quite interesting questions.
They are, but they're very interesting questions. But you see, the difference between you and Mike number 2, Mr. Parry, Doctor, is that you don't know the answer to anything. He knows the answer to everything.
No.
Because he is certain about everything.
No, Doc.
Yes, you do.
No, I agree. I seek answers.
Yeah, right. But then, so for example, if you... You think you know the answer, right? But so, for example, if you ask a mathematician what is 1 + 1, and Mike thinks it's 6, and he thinks he knows the answer, then he thinks he knows the answer.
No, but hang on, Doc. You're supposed to be an expert in this, and you don't seem to know the answer to anything.
No, but that's philosophy.
All you're saying to me is, well, you've got to think about this, consider that. Don't you have any strong and strident views? Can't you tell us this is wrong, that is right? Because, honestly, this is a bit of a blockheaded type discussion.
Okay, yes, I'm the expert, and therefore I'm a scientist, right? So that means I don't just have any view where I said, this is my view. I need to research this view. I need to find scientific evidence for a view.
Well, you haven't found any.
It's a diametric opposite to you. You just blurt out the first thing that comes into your head.
No, you don't seem to have any evidence of anything, Doc. I just wonder whether you're wasting your time, just flailing around in the world trying
it's called...
Oh, dear Mike.
Yeah, isn't it awful? Because the trouble is, you see, my colleague, Porky Parry, Mike too, has a very fine intellect, but he squashes it by not believing in philosophy. He doesn't like to think about philosophy because it doesn't have an answer.
I'm a psychologist, actually, Mike, not a philosopher.
Yeah, but you are a philosopher because you're asking philosophical questions to which there actually is no answer.
Philosophy is just a curtain that people who don't know anything hide behind and pretend that they are trying to find the answer. What do you make?
Shall I tell you a little bit about the actual study, maybe, Mike? Would you like to hear that?
Well, if it's of value, yeah, but nothing so far has been of any value, I'm afraid, Doc.
I think,
bets.
I think, Doctor, what you should do is give us your initial assessment of the psychological state of Mike number 2.
I think he's a bit mean.
I agree with you.
You think I'm a bit mean?
Yeah, you are a bit mean. She's got you in one.
But a bit funny as well. I think we're really entertaining people here.
Well, that's very kind of you, but I mean, when you say I'm a bit mean...
You are a bit mean.
I don't suffer fools lightly, and people who...
I'm saying nothing of value and...
all this...
He knows it all, but that's fine.
Honestly, all this philosophical hogwash, which just sort of
I think you should apologise. I think you should apologise to the Doctor for inviting her onto the radio and being rude to her.
I've not been rude at all. I would not be rude to you, Doctor. You're clearly an eminent scientist, but you don't seem to me to have found any answers yet. If I were you, I'd keep researching until you come up with something and then come back and tell us.
I think that's a very good idea, Mike, and that's what I'm going to do. I'll keep researching.
Okay. Okay, if
Well,
you
Dr.
do that,
Turbo,
thank you very
a
much
very
indeed.
delightful conversation. Thank you so much. And may I apologise on his behalf
Well,
for being ungentlemanly
Don't
and
be
being rude to
ridiculous.
you. And we'll
I've not
talk to
been
you
rude.
again, I'm sure, soon. It's Dr. Sylvia Turbeck, lecturer in psychology, University of Plymouth.
Yeah.
Thinks Mike Parry's mean. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, I don't think the Doc's a very good scientist, frankly.
Really? This
No.
is Talk Radio.
The Two Mikes on Talk Radio. We'll get you talking.
This is Talk Radio. We are the Two Mikes. She was very good, wasn't she, Dr. Sylvia?
She was a good guess, but I don't think she's a great scientist by the sound of it.
Well, no, I think the point about psychology,
she
right?
philosophises without coming up with any sort
Not
of
true.
conclusions.
No. But the point is, in psychology and in
Yeah.
philosophy,
Yeah.
you can't always come up with a conclusion.
Well, in that case, it's just a talking shop. Should close it down. Whatever the vast amounts of money we spend on academia with philosophers.
Well, most of them are run as private
psychologists.
individuals. Anyway, let me read you a couple of tweets out here because Dave has sent one in. He says, any way I could get a shout out for my 47th birthday, I expect there will be some bladder in Modo later.
Okay, who's that, Dave?
That's from Dave.
Okay, Dave, have a great 47th, mate. Bladdo in Modo,
Now,
does
do
apply.
you know how I've always told you that 47 is the most frequently occurring random number?
Yes.
Well, we won't believe this, but I got one from Sean who says, please wish my wife Donna a happy 47th birthday.
Wow, that's the same day.
So it's the same day, and she's 47 as well.
Donna, 47th birthday. Have a great, great day, my dear, and hope it goes well for you. And remember, 47's no age at all. You'll remember 47 when you're 74.
You certainly will, when the numbers are reversed.
That's right. Now, I've got one here, and it's from Julia, who is a long-time fan and listener of the Two Mikes.
Yes.
And she says, Lola is enjoying her lunch listening to the Two Mikes. Great to have you on for half-term. Lola is her little girl, and she's also a big fan. So I'm delighted that we are bringing some joy to the household.
Indeed. I think she's coming to see our show in December as well.
I'm sure she will.
Now, speaking of, there's a couple of things we can draw together here. Speaking of a bit of philosophy, a bit of academic study and tipping, right?
Yes.
Did you see that story the other day about Albert Einstein and his secrets for happiness?
No, what are they?
You didn't?
No.
Well, the story goes, right,
Yeah.
that Albert Einstein went somewhere for a meal.
Yes.
And was about to leave a tip for the waiter. This sounds like the act of a cheapskate to me, by the way, because he realised he didn't have enough cash to leave the tip.
Right.
So what he did was he scribbled down a couple of notes
Yeah,
on a napkin.
and said, keep those,
and
and
handed
they'll
them.
be worth a lot in
Well, it
years
wasn't
to
so
come.
much that they were going to be worth a lot,
Yeah.
but he was literally giving him advice for life.
Okay, and what was the advice?
Well, I'm going to tell you in a moment, but
Right.
don't you wish to kind of take that in and think about
No.
because it's something that you could do.
I thought Einstein, and a lot of people have backed this up. Oh, no, it's Darwin, isn't it? Darwin's a bit of a con man, according to a lot
Darwin?
of people, yeah.
What do you mean a con man?
Well, this the theory of evolution, all that kind of
what
stuff.
you mean it's rubbish?
Yeah, well,
We
yeah.
just made it up.
Well, no, he didn't make it up, but apparently he nicked it from some other
I mean,
scientist.
I know that you are a flat earther,
Yeah.
but for heaven's sake,
But
the
Einstein
theory
was
of
a good
evolution
guy.
is in fact not just a theory.
Well, okay.
Things do evolve.
Yeah, but he apparently nicked a lot of ideas from some other scientist who got sort of washed away in the
Well, you're
excitement
suggesting
about
foul play.
Darwin. Well, yeah, a bit of that. Yeah,
Pushed him overboard
now,
on the way
as for
down
Einstein, Einstein was a good guy, and if it hadn't been for Einstein, we wouldn't have been able to have dropped an H-bomb on Japan, which
Yeah.
is not a great thing.
Well, I
but
don't
I'm
think,
afraid,
that's
that
what
we had
he-
to bring the Second World War to an end.
That's not what he
No.
intended E equals MC squared to come up with.
No, exactly, and we didn't want to go around dropping H-bombs on people or countries, but I'm afraid, as usual, tens of millions of people were led by donkeys. They are the politicians who run your country, and it ends in disaster.
Okay. All right. Well, anyway, here is what he said to the waiter. He said, maybe if you're lucky, these notes I'm giving you will become much more valuable than just a regular tip.
Right.
Right? Now, one of the things that he wrote was, where there's a will, there's a way.
Well, did he invent that?
No, but I mean, he just put that down.
Well, I mean,
As one
anybody
of the
could have made
secrets
that
of-
up,
Well, exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's not exactly, words of wisdom, is it?
A bird in the bush is worth three in the hand.
It's two, actually.
Two, is it? A bird in the bush
Well,
is worth
imagine
two
with
in the
inflation,
hand.
maybe it's three.
Yeah,
Since
it's three,
Brexit,
yeah.
it's three.
So he wrote down something that somebody already invented.
Well, I don't know if he
Where
came
there's
up
a
with
will,
that.
there's a way.
Yeah.
Good God.
Hang on, there's
I mean,
another one.
I can do better than that. If you're not winning, it's because
well-
you're not trying hard enough.
Well, funnily enough, when I tweeted this out the other day,
Yeah.
somebody said, wouldn't it have been great if Einstein had written down, if you're not winning, you're not
That's
trying
right.
hard enough.
Exactly.
But here's the other thing he said.
Yeah.
A quiet and modest life brings more joy than a pursuit of success bound with constant unrest. Now, when I read that,
That's a
I
rubbish.
thought of you.
Why?
Because you are somebody who is in such pursuit of success
yeah.
that you are in constant unrest. You can't relax. You can't take it easy.
Well-
you're always saying that you have to be busy. You are this man that he's describing. Because you don't want a quiet and modest life, do you?
Sometimes I get up at like sort of 5:30 because there's a local shop down in Stockbroker Belt which opens at 6.
Does it?
And I like to be there sometimes on days when we're not necessarily going to be
What sort of
broadcasting. A general purpose shop.
General,
and
like a general store?
Yeah, that's right. It gets its newspapers at 6 o'clock.
Is it a cost cutter?
No, it's not. It's just like a private
Like
shop.
a corner shop?
Yes, a corner shop type place. Now, what happens is there's always an old chap there waiting for his copy of the Times.
Right.
And when he's got it, he wanders off back to his cottage, his humble
Cottage?
sort of abode. Yeah.
You live in... I thought you said you lived in, sort of South London stroke Stockbroker
no,
Belt,
I don't.
Surrey.
I live in Stockbroker
Well,
Belt.
what's the bloke doing with a cottage?
Well, he's got a
Is
cottage.
he a crofter?
No, he's not a crofter, no. He hasn't got a thatcher roof or anything like that. And he goes and sits in his cottage all day and reads the Times all day.
Yeah. Does he do the crossword?
I don't know. I imagine he probably does. But the point is, when I'm there, it's usually on the morning when I want extra newspapers or something like that, because I've got things I have to do. There are things I have to do.
You just said that.
That's a quote from Cillian Murphy playing, who's the main character in
You mean in the
Peaky Blinders?
Peaky Blinders?
Yeah.
That's coming back, isn't it?
It's coming
I
back.
saw an advert for it.
Coming
the other
back,
day.
yeah. And there are things I have to do. That comes from... what's his name? What's the role he plays? Yeah, he plays Shelby, Tommy Shelby.
Oh, Tommy Shelby.
Yeah, Tommy Shelby. Whenever he's about to kill somebody, he says to, usually a lady admirer, I'll be with you tonight, but between now and then there are things I have to do.
What kind of accent is that?
That's the Midland accent.
That's not a very good Midlands
because
accent.
I worked in Birmingham, so I know it. And so what I'm saying is, this poor guy drifts off with his paper under his arm to go make himself a cup of tea.
Yeah.
And then, as far as I'm concerned, by 8 o'clock, his life's over for the day because he's read the Times from front to back.
Well, maybe
what else
he's
do you do
well,
for the
if
rest of the day?
Well, if he's retired, right?
Yeah.
There's any number of things he could do. He could go for a walk. He could watch
Well, I
something on
walk,
television.
and I'm not retired.
Yeah, but he could
I
read.
watch television. I'm not
He
retired.
could read a book.
I read a book sometimes.
You
I'm not
don't read
retired.
books.
I do read book. I bought a book yesterday.
Did you?
Yeah.
What book did you buy?
It's called All the Tribes.
What?
All the Tribes.
Who's it by?
I don't know, but it's about the...
What if you don't know?
It's the native North American and the way that the white man wiped them out. It
Rubbish.
was disgraceful. It was
You
the
have
worst-
not bought a book.
I
I
have.
saw you yesterday.
I have bought a book.
You didn't have a book.
I have bought a book.
Where'd you buy it?
I bought it in Waterstones.
Where?
In Epsom.
Oh, really?
Yes.
And when were you in Epsom Waterstones?
Yesterday morning.
Really?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
So what'd you go there for?
What did I go where for?
What did you go to Epsom Waterstones for?
Because I was walking past and I saw it in the window,
Really?
so I bought it.
But you don't know who it's by?
No, but it's
Who's
I'll
published it?
I'll take I don't know. I'll take a picture of it tonight and then shame you by putting it out when I get home. Okay?
Shame me. I'm just asking you a question.
No. You're doubting
Why
me.
am I?
You're saying
of course
that
I'm doubting you because you're talking rubbish.
No, I
You're
bought
making
a
it
book
up as you
yesterday
go
on
along.
the North American.
I don't believe
the
you.
native North American. All right, well I'm going to prove it when I get home tonight.
No, you're going to try and buy one on the way home tonight.
No, I've got one. And by the way,
How much was it? Look at the panic in your eyes.
I think it was £18.95.
Really?
But guess what? Because Victoria's back in the studio now.
Yeah.
So
Hello.
you're going to be witness to this.
Go on then. What's the name of it?
It's something about native North
You
Americans.
don't know the name title
No, I
either.
don't,
You don't
actually.
know the title.
No,
You don't know
no,
the author.
no.
You don't know how much it was.
No. But I'm going to prove that I'm right because
Did you
guess
buy?
what?
Did you get a plastic bag with it?
I did.
How much did you pay for that?
I don't know. But anyway, look, the point is...
Unbelievable.
The point
You're
is...
just a liar,
I
aren't you?
remember before I left the shop, the
Yeah.
guy said, would you like me to put your receipt in the bag? And I
Yeah.
said, yes, thank you.
Uh-huh.
So I've got the receipt, which dates it yesterday, which
Fine.
proves that I'm telling the truth
Yeah.
and that you are, as usual... a loaf-faced fraud lower than the snake of a belly, okay?
The
no,
snake
the
of a
belly of
belly.
a snake. Lower than the belly of a
snake
snake.
of a belly.
The lower than the belly of a snake.
Yeah.
That's what I meant to say.
I think it's time for the psychologist to come back on. He is Mike Parry. I'm Mike Graham. We're the two Mikes. It's time for some proper news, please, with Victoria Ball.
The two Mikes on Talk Radio. We'll get you talking.
Talk Radio, we are the two Mikes. Ask Porky coming up a little bit later on in the show. I'm going to be telling you what's in the book that I've got in front of me in a second as well. A couple of tweets here for you, though, Porky. One from Connor, who says, Porky just said he wasn't rude to the doc. He just called her a blockhead.
Not to her face, though.
No, indeed.
No.
Here's one from Kate. He said, I agree with Mike Parry. That lady just waffled. What a lovely job to have.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, great. I mean, the pursuit of academia is a great job to have.
Well, it's a waste of time then,
No,
isn't
it's
it?
not. I
Just
don't think
musing
so.
over ideas and never coming to a conclusion.
This is where you and I are very different. You know,
Yeah.
I went to university because I wanted to talk to people about stuff, not necessarily to find an answer to something, but just to talk about it and just to learn about it. Whereas you are much more black and white.
Yeah.
You like to find a solution to everything. Sometimes things don't have a solution.
Well, Russ here says, class Porky, the doc was clueless, OK? So that's one supporter of mine. Another one...
Well, it's not a competition.
Old JPK12 says, how rude was Porky to the doctor of essentially intractable issues, though she seemed to have assessed him accurately.
Yes.
So, you know, that's a sort of...
Well, I think it was a marvellous
one,
understatement of hers to say that you were a bit mean, because you're a bit mean, aren't you?
But she also was a bit funny, as Gary's pointed out. A bit mean, maybe. A bit funny, certainly.
Do you think she meant
Some
funny,
Porky
ha-ha?
up to a T.
Or funny, strange?
No, she meant that I make people... I amuse people.
Okay.
Yeah. I definitely think the doc needs a few more sessions with Porky to get a diagnosis of what goes on in the Portmeister's head.
Yeah.
That comes from Perry.
Exactly right. Now, as if to back up the theory that you may be a little bit mean, I've got this book here in which you get a mention. So I just thought I might read a bit of it out to you.
Whose
right?
book is it?
I'll tell you in a minute.
I've never even seen this book. In fact, I can't even see it
Well,
now
of course you
because
can't
of the
see it.
screens between you
Well,
and
it's
me.
called The Magic of Radio, but I have a book in my
Right.
hot little hands,
Okay.
which I shall reveal to you very shortly.
Okay.
The hatchet man at the radio station was a bloke called Mike Parry.
Oh, right.
Is how it starts.
Yeah.
He called me up on a Monday morning and asked me to come into the office. I said, I don't need to come in. I know what you're going to say. It's fine. He said, no, it's not what you think. I need you to come in for a chat. Can you come in later this morning? So I did. I walked in knowing full well what he was going to say, and by the way, everyone hung their heads and avoided eye contact. The rest of the staff did too. But when I got into his office, it was even briefer than I'd anticipated. Take a seat, said Mr. Parry. As I did, I said with some attitude, what? Wanting to add, you revolting little man.
That's rather
And
hard.
amazing myself at my own restraint.
Yes.
He didn't disappoint and returned with a, you're fired. Pick up your cards on the way out.
And who is that supposed to be?
It's written by Ms. Carol McGiffin
About who?
of Loose Women. About you?
That's rubbish.
What do you mean it's rubbish?
That never happened. I
well, do you
promise
want me to put you in touch with a good lawyer so you can sue her?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, that never
Probably.
happened. That
Well, you never
happened.
fired Carol McGiffin.
I did. Yes, I had to fire Carol McGiffin because
Well, that did happen then.
The figures were so low on the Saturday morning show she did with some other guy. She was the ultimate. And by the way, she's a very nice lady.
Yeah.
So I haven't got a problem with that.
She doesn't think you're very nice.
But professionally, it wasn't working. The figures on the Saturday morning show weren't good.
No.
And what she did was she extended far beyond the time when it should have petered out, the idea and the attitude of the ladette.
Yes.
She wanted to be another Zoe Ball.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, she wanted to be, and she was always going on about how drunk I got last night, and you know, did I snog this bloke in a bar and all that kind of stuff. And it had reached its sell-by date. So I just explained that to her very nicely. I said, I'm awfully sorry.
Yeah.
We're going in a different direction, and we're going to have
Well, I don't know why
more
she's
sport."
making all this up. She
And-
says, I was furious. He must have hated me to make me do that walk of shame right in and out in front of the office, in front of everyone.
I never called her in.
Right.
What happened was she was in the office,
Right.
and I asked
I
somebody
think
to go.
you should sue her.
I asked somebody to go and speak to her and say, "Could you come and talk to me?" She came and talked to me. I sat down. I was extremely as helpful as I could be. I'm really sorry it didn't work out and all that kind of stuff. Gave her a great reference.
Yeah.
She went on to have a good television career.
Yeah.
She wrote a column in a newspaper, and on both occasions when she got those jobs, I was contacted
Right.
by the person who employed her
Uh-huh.
and asked about her, and I said I think she would suit that job very
And you
well
gave
indeed.
her a good reference.
I gave her a good reference.
Well, that's very ungrateful of her, then,
and,
isn't it?
yeah, I do not recognise those events. I tell you, that never happened.
And that was supposedly at Talk Sport back in the day.
It was in Oxford Street
Yeah.
because when we took over, we had studios and offices in Oxford Street, and we had to completely change the structure. It was losing huge amounts of money.
Yeah.
Talk Radio in those days. That's what it was called when we took it over.
Yes.
We changed it to Talk Sport later. Now we are back in a Talk Radio studio
Yes.
as a sister station
Yeah.
to Talk
But
Sport.
this is a lot better than that was.
But that is rather a malign version of events.
I think you should contact her lawyers. Or get your lawyers to contact her lawyers.
The trouble is, it's one against one, isn't it? You know, it's her version against mine, but that certainly never took place.
No.
And you know, when was that book published, by the way?
I don't know.
Does it say on the inside leaf? It
I'll have a
should
look.
say first published,
It
whatever
should, shouldn't
date.
it? Yeah.
And nobody's ever raised it
Oh,
with me
Carol
before now.
is the name of it.
Yeah.
Life, Love and Telling It Like It Is.
Yes.
Let's see.
Well, I'm afraid she's told that version of events like it wasn't.
Porky Parry's, Porkies. First published in 2010.
Well, there you go. It's been
In
around
paperback.
for 7 years. Well, I'm sorry, I don't recognise it, and nobody's ever related it to me.
No.
Now, were you ever a big fan of AC/DC?
Not a massive fan of AC/DC. However, I was quite keen on some of their songs.
Yes.
They had for a long time a big battle with Apple, you know. For years and years and years, they wouldn't allow Apple to flog their music.
Apple,
i.e. like iTunes, you know.
Oh, I see. You're not talking about the Apple, the recording company founded by the Beatles.
No. I'm talking about Apple, as in the owners of half the world's computers.
Okay.
And iTunes, where you can download songs rather than actually buying the albums or buying the CDs or buying whatever.
Yeah.
They wouldn't allow Apple to have control of any of that. Until relatively recently.
I see. I didn't even realise they were an Australian band.
Yeah.
Australian band. Okay.
Yeah.
So good bands come out of Australia. In Excess.
A lot of good bands come out of Australia.
Okay. Well,
Midnight Oil.
They were the very first because they formed the Easy Beats at a Sydney migrant hostel in the early 1960s.
Right.
And the guy who was the inspiration behind it all was a guy called George Young.
Yes. Was it not Angus Young? Do you remember the guy who used to wear the short trousers?
No, I think that was his brother.
He could play the guitar. Was he related?
I think that was his brother, because I think it was him and his brother. But anyway, the reason I'm telling you all this is that George Young has just died.
Has he?
Sadly, yeah.
Right.
He died, George Young, born on November the 6th, 1946, died of undisclosed causes just 2 days ago.
Okay.
Aged 70. But what happened was...
Well, hold on to that thought, because we haven't got a lot of time now, but we can play maybe that song
I think we
that
should.
he should be famous for.
He should. He formed a group called the Easy Beats.
Right.
They had one great song, which was a worldwide hit, called Friday on My Mind.
Yeah.
And it's one of my favourite songs, but I didn't realise it was him. And it
didn't
went
either.
like... Mondays,
Well, I was rather
got
play it.
Friday on my mind.
I don't want to hear it from you. 'Cause you'll ruin it. No, but I don't want to hear it from you. I want to hear it from the original.
But it encompassed Britain in the 70s when everybody had a
maybe for
boring
you.
job. No, they had a boring job. They worked in.
I didn't.
They worked in
I was
factories.
still at school.
No. Majority of people.
Have you seen the time, by the way?
They worked in factories where you pulled a lever every time a car went past and it needed a nut on its wheel.
Yeah.
Okay. Or they worked in boring mills where you wove jumpers or something like that.
That's the north you're
or they
talking about
walked
again, isn't
in
it?
Or they worked in Woolworths where they sweeping up floors.
There were no mills
Life
in
was
Hampstead.
boring. Life was grey, dull, awful.
There were no mills in Hampstead. I was growing up.
And so. Mondays I
Do you
got
have any
Friday
concept of the
on
time?
my mind.
Do you have any concept of the time?
Da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
Jeez, unbelievable. This is Talk Radio.
The two mics on Talk Radio. We'll get you talking.
Coming Tuesday, I feel better. Even my old man looks good. Wednesday just don't go. Thursday goes too slow. I'll get Friday on my mind. Yeah. Gonna have fun in the city. Be with my girl, she's so pretty. She looks fine tonight, but she is outside to me. That's been my
Is that
It's a great song.
It is a great song, yeah.
I think it's great. And
I must admit, it's one of those songs that you do know, but you never really knew who did it.
Exactly. Well, what happened was the guy George Young was the founder of the Easy Beats.
Right.
They made one great song. That was that one.
Right.
After coming from Australia to rebase in London,
Yeah.
and then it didn't really pick up for them. So he said, "Right, I'm going into production."
Yeah.
His brother came over. They formed AC/DC.
And so that was Angus.
Worldwide fame. Yeah, that's right.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Well, we'll talk some more about that
Yeah,
in a minute
sure.
because I like the idea of talking about AC/DC. I saw them once at Wembley when they were supporting the Rolling Stones.
Yeah.
Weren't really supporting the Rolling Stones, but I mean, it was a fascinating
Sure.
lineup of bands that I managed to see. Because right now we're going to talk about one of your little creatures that you like to protect
Yes.
every now and again, and it's a great British hedgehog, of course. Because
right.
Everybody loves hedgehogs, but apparently there's something out there at the moment which might be doing them an awful lot of damage.
That's
We're going to
right.
talk to Faye Vass, who's from the British Hedgehog Preservation Society. Faye, a very good afternoon to you. Welcome.
Hello.
Thank
Hi,
you
Faye.
so much for talking to us. I mean, I'm right to say everybody loves hedgehogs. I don't think I've met anyone in the world ever who doesn't love looking at little hedgehogs and watching them walk and all of that. But there's a problem at the moment in this country, certainly. Tell us what it is.
Yeah, there are some concerns that hedgehogs are being fed by kindly homeowners and offering the wrong foods. So things like too many mealworms, too many sultanas, too many peanuts, all those kind of foods can be bad for hedgehogs. So it's much better, we think, to offer some meaty cat or dog food, hedgehog biscuits or cat biscuits instead, and only ever water to drink.
I mean, this is a huge problem, Faye, because I think it's incredibly difficult to re-educate people into what they should feed wild animals. For instance, I have a duck conservancy, and we're often involved in rows with people about should you feed them bread, brown bread, or should you feed them peas and all that kind of stuff. But once somebody's set in their ways and people are putting out these food for these hedgehogs, how do you get the word out that please stop doing it?
It is difficult, I admit. I mean, we used to say years ago bread and milk was a good thing for hedgehogs, and we now know that's not the case. And I think that message has pretty much got through now. It takes a while to filter through, and like you say, people, there are some people who are absolutely stubborn, so that's what I've always done, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
But if they genuinely care for the hedgehogs, then hopefully they'll be looking for the best information they can get.
What sort of problems is it giving our little creatures?
Well, to be slightly technical, for every sort of milligram of phosphorus that a hedgehog eats, it's got to eat another milligram of calcium. Otherwise, the calcium gets taken from its stores instead, which like its teeth and bones, to balance out the phosphorus. Mealworms have got lots of phosphorus in them, so if they eat too many, then they need to find a lot of calcium from somewhere, and that's often their bones. So it's thought that now eating too many of them can cause bone problems and thin bones in hedgehogs.
Oh, that's terrible.
And I mean, when we talk about, I mean, I don't know how many people put food out for hedgehogs. I mean, I personally don't do it. I did it once when we saw a hedgehog in the garden, and for some reason it was suggested that we put a bit of ham out for the hedgehog. The hedgehog didn't eat the ham, and in fact a slug came out later and ate the ham, and the hedgehog sort of wandered off. But how far away are we at any time? We hear from people in London that you're never more than like 10 feet or 7 feet away from a rat.
Yeah.
I mean, how far away are we from a hedgehog at any time?
That's a great question. I don't think that's ever been looked at. But certainly, we must be getting further and further away from them because they are in decline, unfortunately. There's far fewer hedgehogs now than there were, say, 10 years ago.
Really?
Yeah, but that's down to urbanisation, isn't it?
Partly, but it's also true in rural areas. So urban and rural areas are both in decline.
Oh dear.
Well, there's a lot more foxes around. Are foxes getting them?
No, I mean foxes can take the odd hedgehog, but they're not a main part of their diet, and they always have lived alongside each other without problems. There's lots of video footage of people who feed both foxes and hedgehogs in the gardens with no problems.
Okay. One of the things it said you shouldn't feed them are mealworms. Now, I have to admit, I'm not very familiar with mealworms. What are mealworms? Do you buy these in pet shops or something?
You do. They're usually sold for birds.
Right.
They're sort of bird feed that you put out, and robins, blue tits, things like that, love them.
Yeah.
And that's fine, but hedgehogs have got a different metabolism, a different way that they work, so they need different food. And just for future, ham's not great either.
No, exactly. Well, that's my colleague there, blundering around the countryside.
Yeah, well, I didn't know what else to put down. I mean,
hedgehogs.
This is the thing. I mean, a lot of people, I presume, are like me. I consider myself to be reasonably well educated, but I don't know what hedgehogs eat really, and I wouldn't know what to give them.
No, well, I mean, you're along the right lines because it is a sort of meaty food, and they do eat a lot of meaty, proteiny feed.
So there.
But it's really processed for us humans and really salty, which is not great for them. So, I mean, if you had a piece of fresh chicken, that would be fine to offer it. Not processed for chicken, but easier is probably just a meaty cat or dog food and just water to drink.
Yeah, that's great. What is your view on people who take these animals to their heart and then domesticate them, if you see what I mean?
What do you mean?
Well, because...
they put a lead on them.
No, you don't put a lead on them, but they come back every night for the same food, don't they, if they know somebody's putting that food out. And this may not be a problem with hedgehogs, but it's certainly become a problem with people who feed foxes and squirrels and that sort of thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, feeding hedgehogs, especially at this time of year, is a good idea if you can, because they need to pile on the weight for hibernation.
Sure.
And as long as you're feeding them and treating them as wild visitors rather than pets, then that's great. But no, we wouldn't want people thinking of them as pets. They are wild animals, and we've got to remember that much as we love them.
Yes, absolutely, yeah. And what about tortoises? Do they have the same sort of problem?
Oh, don't know. I don't know much about tortoise.
Well, why would she be an expert in tortoises? She's from the British Hedgehog Preservation Society.
Yes, I know that, but hedgehogs live in gardens, and so do tortoises. So I assume there's some kind of,
Well, they don't run wild, do they?
Working sort of relationship between a tortoise and a hedgehog, because they're both wild animals. That's right, isn't it, Faye?
I don't think you describe either as wild animals, would you?
Well, you know, kind of wild.
We do sometimes get calls from people whose tortoise house has been taken over by a hedgehog.
Oh, right.
And they've evicted the tortoise, so we do sometimes get those calls.
The invasion. But anyway, so the future's not bright for hedgehogs in this country. What are we going to do to try and rebolster the hedgehog population?
Well, there's lots and lots you can do. We've got a project called Hedgehog Street that we run with People's Trust for Endangered Species.
Yep.
And as part of that, there's loads of tips on how you can get your street and your area involved on the Hedgehog Street website.
Oh, yeah.
And also up until the end of this month, we've got the first ever hedgehog housing census. So we're asking people to tell us all about the houses they've got for hedgehogs in their garden, because people often construct or buy these really elaborate hedgehog houses.
That's great.
So you want to know all about those, where they've sited them, if they've worked, what they've used inside them, all of that kind of stuff. So go along to the Hedgehog Street website and you can find out about that.
Well,
there you go.
That's great.
Well, Faye, thank you very
Faye,
much
thank you very much indeed for joining
Appreciate
us.
your time. Hopefully, we'll save
It's
a few
all turned
hedgehogs.
to saving the hedgehog.
lives. Here's a good tweet
Hedgehogs
from...
are beautiful little creatures.
Yeah, well, here's a great tweet from Madge, who's certainly got you down to a T. Does Porky advocate setting fire to hedgehogs or electrocuting them, or is that just for bats and cats?
Don't be ridiculous.
Hey?
Don't be ridiculous.
Well, that's what you've done before, isn't it?
Well, if you've got a load of bats in your belfry, so to speak, or
if
in
you
the
have
shed,
a belfry.
Yeah, if you have a belfry, or in a an outbuilding.
Yeah.
There's not many ways you can get rid of them without setting fire to them, because that will then, the smoke will get rid of them. You see what I mean?
I'll tell you what, Faye has just given a great tip as she was leaving there. She says, please remind everyone to check your bonfire for hedgehogs.
Yes.
Do you remember I told you that terrible story? There's a field not far from where I live in Sussex, right?
Yes.
And in the midst of the field is a massive kind of collection of, branches and bits of tree and sticks. And it's a huge, it's about the size of this studio.
Where is this?
In a field round the back of my house.
Okay. So have the local council been down yet to find out if the right sort of wood's been piled on the bonfire?
No, because
that's going to happen.
Well, no, because it's not a bonfire per se. But I was asking one of the guys who works on the estate, why is all that sort of, foliage, if for want of a better word, been collected like that? And you know what he told me?
No.
He said, well, what they like to do is they collect all of that there, and then they wait for all the creatures like hedgehogs and such to crawl into it, and then they set fire to it.
Who do?
The farmers.
Why?
Because they want to get rid of what they call pests.
Well, hedgehogs are pests. They're not pests.
Well, they must. I mean, you know what? In farming communities, they don't necessarily have the same attitude to animals that we have.
Absolutely dreadful.
It is awful, but
Absolutely
so far
shocking.
so good because nobody's set fire to it.
Okay, well, I hope they don't in that case.
Nat says this, Porky, why don't you bring out an album of your a cappella singing the parts of songs you know, even if you only know the instrumental bits?
Yeah, well, that's okay, but I mean, I know a lot more than that. I've got so much knowledge in my head, I can't get it out all at the same time, the same speed
it's
sometimes.
It's quite awe-inspiring.
Yeah.
This is Talk Radio.
The Two Mics on Talk Radio. We'll
Live, that is an incredible experience, I can tell you that.
Yeah, but I feel like I've heard that version of a song many times over from heavy metal groups, like Led Zeppelin.
Well, that's
that
one of
kind
the original ones, right?
Yeah.
And also, the reason I like that particular song and the reason I
Yeah.
quite like to think of AC/DC is that's the concert I went to at Wembley Stadium, as I say. And I think it was the Tattoo You tour.
Right.
When they did Start Me Up. Remember that song, the Rolling Stones?
Start me
that
up.
doesn't mean I want you to sing it, right?
Buttercup,
no.
start me up.
It was
bum,
not. No, it wasn't
bum,
Start Me Up,
bum,
Buttercup.
bum. Yeah,
that was Build Me Up, Buttercup.
Oh, was it?
You're
Okay,
confusing two songs. It was
All
a
right.
completely different song
Okay.
from a completely different era. Anyway, but that particular show was punctuated and remembered well by me because it was the time when my ex-wife punched a Hell's Angel.
Oh yeah, why?
Have I told you that story?
No.
We were we were inside the sort of on the pitch basically at Wembley.
Yes.
As you could imagine, massive crowd all around. There was people in the seats. There was people all over the pitch. Because we were sort of halfway, I would say halfway to where one of the goals is, right? At the end where the stage was. And when the Rolling Stones came on, there was this incredible surge of people from the back. And everybody pushed forward. And it was quite frightening, actually. And she didn't fancy it very much. So we decided to go out to the side.
Right.
And as we were heading out to the side, people were very good at sort of moving out of the way because they could see that she looked a little bit panicked, right? And I'm sort of pulling her by the hand and leading her through the crowd as it's pushing forward. And as we got, there was a group of sort of people dressed in leathers, men and women.
Security.
No, these were Hell's Angels.
Yeah, but didn't they take on the role of security?
That was only at Altamont.
Oh, okay.
That was only in one place, and then they killed someone, so they didn't get asked back.
No.
Now, these were just fans, right? Now, as I was walking past these guys, this girl tried to trip me up. For no reason, just because she was an idiot, I presume.
Yeah.
And I kind of stumbled, I nearly fell over. And if I had fallen over, obviously that would have been quite dangerous, with all those people stuck around.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I turned around to her and I said, well, that was pretty stupid, using another form of language for that. And just as I did that, this guy who was standing next to her pulled his arm back as if to punch me.
Yeah.
You know, like fully back.
Yes.
But instead of me then, and I was kind of frozen in time watching him, waiting for him to punch me, my ex-wife pushed me out of the way and punched him, and he
Really?
fell over.
Really?
Yeah. And then we
That's,
scarpered out to the side.
Really?
Yeah.
That's quite...
It was amazing.
Very brave thing to have done.
Yeah.
But she was probably panicking, Susan.
Well, I couldn't believe it.
Panic.
Well, we'd had quite a lot to drink by
I
this
didn't
stage
want to
as
lose
well.
you.
But yeah, and then we got out, and I went out and went, Christ, you just saved me from being punched by a Hell's Angel.
Untrampled on.
Probably.
But anyway, the reason we're playing that song is that was AC/DC.
Yeah.
And George Young was originally a guitarist with the Easy Beats in Sydney, in
Yes.
Australia.
Uh-huh.
He wrote Friday on My Mind, but then became the driving force behind the band AC/DC, which was frontlined by his brother.
Yes.
What was his brother's name again?
His brother was George, wasn't he?
No, George is the guy I'm talking about. He was the band
Well,
producer.
Angus is the guitar player.
Angus is the guitar player, that's
Yeah.
right, yeah. Now, the figures are quite astonishing. Listen to this. George Young returned to produce AC/DC's 1988 chart topper, Blow Up Your Video.
Uh-huh.
Are you aware of that?
Don't know that one.
By which time his brother had become the biggest selling rock band in his brothers. Sorry, he had more than one brother.
Right.
He had two.
So were they both in the band?
Both in the band.
Right.
His brothers had become the biggest selling rock band in the world. Only, to this day, only Michael Jackson's Thriller sits above the 50 million sales, notched up by AC/DC's Back in Black.
There you go.
In the all-time list of top-selling albums.
Isn't that incredible?
That's incredible.
It is.
Back in Black, are you
Right.
aware of that one?
I am aware of that. That's
Yeah.
one of their best-known albums. The thing about AC/DC is that they were kind of interrupted in mid-flow because Bon Scott, who was their lead singer,
Yeah.
unfortunately died after an intense session of
Yeah.
sort of drinking.
Yeah.
I think it was just drinking, not taking drugs, but he
Right.
basically choked while he was on his own
Yes.
in a hotel room in London, I think.
Who was this?
Bon Scott, who was the original singer
Oh, I
of
see.
AC/DC. He was
Right.
then replaced by a guy from a band called Geordie, right, who
Yep.
was British. I can't remember his name now, but he used to wear this massive, great big flat cap.
Yes.
And he ended up being even more successful as
Right.
their singer than the previous guy.
Right.
You know?
Amazing.
Yeah.
In fact, there were 8 children.
Well, in the Young family.
In the Young family,
Wow.
yeah. And so 2 of them were in the band, and George was their, their Brian Epstein
Yeah,
type
right.
sort of guy. But anyway, they had 14 hit singles,
Yeah.
and
Well, they're still going, I think. aren't
that was in Sydney before they even got here,
Hmm.
and they're the biggest export out of Australia after the Bee Gees.
they? Yeah.
How about that?
That does not surprise me.
Pretty good, eh?
Pretty amazing.
Yes, it
Pretty
is.
amazing stuff.
these people in the rock world, I have to say.
Yes.
Now then,
Yes.
I was going to tell you about. I was going to tell you about cocktails actually, but I'm going to save this till tomorrow. 'Cause
Oh, yeah?
we've got a drinks expert coming in.
Is that right?
We have got a drinks expert coming in tomorrow.
We're not bringing anybody in with drinks, though, I hope. Like we had a wine bird in once.
Yes.
Helena.
Well, we better not do that because we've got 2 shows
That's
tomorrow,
what I mean.
haven't we?
Yeah.
We've got a show that finishes here at 4:00.
Yeah.
And then
We've
we're
got
out.
a show on TalkSport in the evening.
Show on TalkSport in the evening starting at 10:00.
Yes.
So I want you to be on best behaviour in between.
Well,
okay?
my plan is to leave here straight after the show at 4 and go home.
Right, okay. I don't want
then-
any bladderation in moderation.
No, absolutely
or
not.
ex-moderation.
I'm not
right?
going anywhere near a pub.
But it says cocktails are more satisfying when drunk from a tall, slender glass than a squat one because we are tricked into thinking it holds more than it really does. And that's a scientific research
I'm
document.
not sure I agree with
which
that.
we'll explore tomorrow.
Uh-huh.
Okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, what are you going to tell me about instead?
What am I going to tell you about instead?
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you about
Because
some
you
of
said
these...
you were going to hold on to that story for tomorrow.
Yeah, we're going to hold on to that tomorrow. Now, what I was going to tell you was that I wanted to read you some responses to the things we've just been talking about.
Oh, yeah.
Now, it says here, Carol, that's Carol McGiffin, she's probably just trying to sell copies of a book, spicing up a story about Porky, absolutely disgraceful, says a guy called Steptoe.
Yes.
And I think that's absolutely
Here's
right.
one from Lee. He says, ask Porky to bring the receipt in for that book that he bought to prove he doesn't just buy it on the way home tonight.
Oh, will.
Well,
I
the
will.
thing about what you don't know about Lee is about...
I'll take a picture and put it out tonight.
What you don't know, Lee, is that Porky is quite capable, and you will not disagree with this, I'm sure. You're quite capable of going to a bookshop, asking for them to backdate the receipt, and then give you the receipt once you've bought the book today.
No, they wouldn't do that. It comes out of a machine.
Yeah,
The
but-
receipt
yeah, but
comes
you
out
can
of a machine.
recalibrate machines.
It's not like it's not like 30 years ago when people wrote receipts
What are you
by hand.
suggesting?
You know what I mean?
What are you suggesting?
Well, we used to invent
I
receipts
didn't.
all the time
No,
in Fleet Street.
absolute rubbish.
To
Absolute nonsense.
Sort of build up our expenses.
You know there's no statute of limitations on
Excuse me?
defrauding the tax office, don't you?
Well, I've never defrauded the tax office
Thank
in my
goodness
life.
for that.
I wouldn't do that.
Yeah, good.
I wouldn't do that.
Mr. Chilly says maybe Porky can rent one of his many properties to a hedgehog and its family.
Well, if I could help a hedgehog, I definitely would. There's
Hmm.
no doubt about it, but it's difficult to know. I don't see many hedgehogs these days, and that's because of urbanisation.
Well, I don't think we ever really saw them. I mean, I could tell you that I've only in my entire life, I think, seen 2 hedgehogs.
Really?
2. How many have you seen? Actually, 3.
Probably about the same number,
Yeah.
I would imagine.
I mean, you don't really see them, do
And
you?
sometimes you see them all literally curled up in a little ball, little spiky ball.
Well, they do that to protect themselves.
Yeah, they do. Of course they do. Right, now one guy here called David says, great hearing AC/DC, without doubt my favourite band.
There you go.
Well, I'm afraid that, the
You
reason
don't
we're
share
talking
that,
about
do you?
No, I don't. And the reason we're talking about it is because the guy who actually invented them, a guy called George Young, has, I'm afraid, died.
Passed on.
Yeah.
Now, people have been mentioning pound coins, and I wanted to say this earlier on, but we got distracted. You know the old pound coins that
Yes.
people are... Have you tried actually spending one and being rejected yet?
Yes, I have.
Has it happened to you?
Yes, it happened to me in a public house at the end of last week.
Public house?
Yes.
Another one?
Yes.
Well,
and-
why do all your stories revolve around public houses?
Well, because that's where you exchange money, isn't it? Largely
Well, there are
in
lots
cash.
What about your local corner shop?
I don't really use my. Local
I got
corner shop much.
rejected in a petrol station.
Oh, did it really?
Yeah.
What, with one pound coin?
Well, I actually stopped to get some coffee. I was driving back down to Sussex.
Oh, I
and it was
see,
in the
yeah.
middle of the night, and I thought I could do with a coffee. So I paid with
Yeah.
I took out a handful of change, gave it to them, and they said, "Oh, sorry, we can't
That's
accept
right.
this."
Yeah.
But what I want to say is, apparently, the poppy appeal,
Yeah.
right, which
Yeah.
is ongoing because we're
Yes.
getting closer to November, they are accepting them. So if you've got any old £1 coins,
I found 18 at home,
well, you hang on, you already cashed in 276 quid's worth, didn't you?
and another 240 the following week, which I haven't
What?
told you about yet. Yeah.
What, so you've got over 600 quid
Yes,
practically.
that's right. And the
Well, hang on, you've then got that as money you can spend in the supermarket
no,
got a voucher.
I cashed it in for cash.
for cash.
Yes.
Well, why don't you give it to charity?
Well, it's my money, and I give lots of
What do
other
you mean it's
money
your
to
money?
charity. Well, it's my money.
Well, hang on. The poppy appeal is one of the greatest things that you can give money to, no matter how many charities you pay into.
Yeah.
At this time of year, you give money to the poppy appeal.
Well, I do that every year. That's not a problem.
Well, why don't you give them all your change? Give them all your old £1 coins, is what I'm saying.
Well, I think I'm going to have about 30 or 35 altogether,
Right.
because they came out of the pockets of coats hanging up in
Pockets?
my closet. Okay.
What, so not only have you got jars full of money,
Well,
but
I'll
you've
tell you-
got coats full of money.
No, I tell you what I had. I had 2. Is it called Easy Mate? The white powder stuff you put in coffee.
Eh?
Easy Mate.
We're talking
No,
about
no,
something else there
no,
for a
no.
second.
I think it is.
No, it's called
this-
Coffee Mate.
Coffee Mate. That's right. So I had-
EasyJet is an airline.
No. I had 2 big.
Unless you're talking about that white powder somebody sent you once in the post. Do you remember that?
No. Yeah, I do.
It turned out to be
actually, yeah.
anthrax, didn't it?
It did.
Actually,
yeah.
no, it turned out to be Coffee Mate, I think.
I'm not sure what it was, but anyway, I've got
Closed
2.
off the street.
I've got 2 of these tubs, right, which
Yeah.
I had money, and I took them into the money machine in Morrison's.
Yes.
And I got 245 quid.
Well, we saw what you got. You got 270 odd, didn't you?
Yeah, but 10% of it went in commission, right?
Yeah.
So the following week, I found the Malteser bin.
Right.
Is it a bin?
Well, it's a bucket.
A bucket, that's right, the Malteser
Or a
bucket.
tin, maybe.
No, it was a bucket, plastic
Right.
bucket.
Okay.
And it was so heavy that when I tried to pick it up, the plastic handle snapped off. So I had to carry it into Morrison's.
So you had to carry it like...
two-handed. Yeah,
two-handed.
that's right. Yeah, that's right.
pathetic.
Yeah, and then I tipped that in, right?
Do they not think you're a bit odd down there?
No, not at all. And I got another like 267 quid, right,
Yeah.
out of that.
Right.
But what I spotted, because I'm sort of the average bear, was that was past the deadline for the old £1 coins, and yet the coin money machine took them.
Right.
So I then decided not to waste the moment, and I've now gone through the pockets of my sort of 20 outdoor coats,
Right.
right? And I've got...
You've got 20 outdoor coats.
I've got about 20, yeah.
Why?
Just to go outdoors in, I
Well, are they
suppose.
all the same?
No, I've got...
You've got 20 different coats.
Yes, I've got 2 overcoats,
Right.
big ones
Yeah.
for the cold, but it's never cold enough to wear them these days.
Right.
I've got 2 Macs.
Uh-huh.
I've got like 3 or 4
Raincoats.
short, what
Sort
you
of
might
waterproof type things.
well, you might call
Anoraks.
them anoraks. Yeah, I might
Yeah.
call them anoraks. Yeah.
Cagoules.
Yeah, cagoules, something like that.
Yeah.
I've got a.
Why have you got all this stuff?
I've got
you
2
always wear the same
No,
clothes.
Hang on, I've got 2 leather jackets.
2 leather jackets.
Two casual leather jackets,
Yeah.
right?
Are they both black?
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
They are both black. Yeah. I've got a sort of like a waterproof jacket for when it rains.
Well,
you know.
isn't that an anorak?
No, it's a full length one.
Hey?
Yeah, it's full length.
Well, it's a
one.
coat then.
No, it's a Halley something or other. Halley Comet or something. No, not Halley Comet. Halley Hassel. Halley Hassan.
I've no idea.
Yeah, it's some brand of
Halitosis.
No, it's some brand of waterproof coat.
Yeah.
Halley Hansen, I think it's called.
Okay.
Halley Hansen. And I've got about another half dozen coats, right? You know, which.
But why have they got money in them?
Because when I use them,
Yeah.
and I, leave money in the pocket, what do you do with it? Well, you don't take it out and put it in another coat. You leave it in the coat.
I
So
would-
far found about 35 quid's worth of old coins. I'm going to put in the money machine and take £35.
Well,
Less
you
than 10%.
should give it to the
10%
Poppy
commission.
Appeal.
Well, I might, but I'm not going to give it.
Anyway,
all to
my
them
point
direct.
was, as a public service announcement, I was going to say to people, if you've got any pound coins, rather than chucking them away or dragging them to the bank or anything like that, go and give them to the Poppy Appeal, because they'll take them and they can use them and they need them because it's charity.
It's a very fine and justifiable charity, I have
is,
to say. My
absolutely.
favourite charity, I think, throughout the year,
Is
apart from Main Chance, which is the horse charity run by my good friend Jenny Seagrove.
Yes.
Which I donate
You're
to.
going to one of her shows soon, aren't you?
I'm going to the gala night of her new show called The Exorcist next Tuesday night.
Is it going to be a bit squeamish making, do you think?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's
The Exorcist, the movie, when it first came out, was terribly sort of badly received in terms of its goriness and its rather
I went
brutal
with a young
nature.
lady who was my companion at the time,
Yeah.
and we had to leave the theatre
Did you?
because they had to leave the cinema because she couldn't stand it
Really?
anymore.
Yeah.
Went to the pub next door called The Bell in Nottingham.
Oh, we've got to talk about pub names, aren't
Yeah,
we?
yeah.
We'll do that next.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, this is Talk Radio.
Yeah.
The Two Mics on Talk Radio. We'll get you talking.
I found my thrill on Blueberry Hill. On Blueberry Hill. When I found you, the moon stood still.
Playing some good tunes today on the radio.
Well, we have got some good tunes. I mean, do you think that's a good tune?
I think it is. I think if you were to, say, go through a kind of 1 hour show of songs that meant something over the years in musical terms, this would have to be in.
I don't rate that at all.
Why?
Dull, boring,
No, it's not.
pedestrian.
Fats Domino, one of the fathers of modern popular music.
Who said that?
I just did.
Oh, did you? Well, I'll
Yeah.
tell you who else said it. Elvis Presley.
Did he?
And John Lennon.
Okay,
Right.
well, I'm in
But
good company
I
then.
still don't rate him. I
I'm
don't
in good
rate him.
company. So even though your hero, John Lennon,
Yeah.
and one of the most famous men in the history of music
Yes.
in the world ever,
Yes.
Elvis Presley,
Yes.
think that this is important,
Yeah.
you don't.
I don't. I thought Fats Domino was a joke. And I don't wish to speak ill of the dead.
Well, you've already done it, I'm
but
afraid.
the reason we're talking about it is because he's died,
He has.
sadly, about 83.
To be fair, I didn't know he was still alive.
No, I didn't either.
Because, I mean, that song comes from a very long time ago.
Yeah, but I mean, I thought he was some kind of what I'm looking at, sort of jazz singer or something like that.
Yeah.
And then to be lauded as the creator of the modern pop world,
Well, I
I
remember
just don't see it.
watching or reading an interview with Jimmy Page and Robert Plant at Led Zeppelin, who also thought that this guy kind of started what they carried on.
What was
at
the
Led
other?
Zeppelin.
There's only one other song he made, which is any good.
Yeah, Ain't That a Shame?
Ain't that a shame? Ain't that a shame?
But I think the point is-
and that to me was a non-song. That
Well,
was just a dirge, load of rubbish.
It's been covered by an awful lot of bands, and also I think you have to remember, rather like the Beatles in their time, he was doing things that nobody else had done.
Yeah, okay.
And so, that music didn't exist. So
Right.
in order to put it in its context, you have to say, well, Fats Domino was a pioneer.
Yes, okay.
Right.
So I say to you, right, name me 10 great...
I say to you, when you tell you to Tony Blair.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. I say to you, name me 10 great Fats Domino songs.
No, I can't.
Of course you couldn't.
I can name you
can't.
two great ones, though.
I
Ain't
can-
That a Shame and
Yeah,
Blueberry
all
Hill.
right. And so I say to you, just to compare it, name me 10 great Elton John songs.
Well,
and you could name 10, couldn't you?
I could probably name 5 great Elton John songs.
Yeah,
I'm not sure I could name
10 David Bowie songs. You could name 10
I could
easy.
certainly name 10 of his great songs.
Name
yeah.
10
Yeah, but
Queen
again-
songs.
Yeah,
You
but
could
again,
name
you see,
10
you're,
easily.
You're
But he
comparing,
didn't seem to
no,
have
hang
done
on.
much in 83 years.
Well, you're
2
comparing-
songs, 2 half-good songs.
You're comparing
eh?
chalk and cheese, as ever.
No, I'm not.
In addition to being, unworthy of you being so horrible about somebody who's just passed away.
Yeah.
You don't know how many songs he wrote. You don't know the power and the influence that he had over those who were recording much later on.
Yeah.
When it was a lot easier to record 25 songs. When it
Yes.
was a lot easier to record 100 songs. you know?
Rubbish. In the 60s, The Beatles made an album in one day.
Yeah.
I think it was with the Beatles or Please Please Me or something. They made it in one day. So it was pretty easy to make records in the 60s, and he's from the 50s, wasn't he? Fats Domino.
Well, how about this, right? Fats Domino's record. He had 35 records in the US Billboard Top 40, and 5 of his pre-1955 records sold more than 1 million copies.
Okay,
being
name them.
certified
Name them.
gold.
Name them. Nobody can name them.
Well, I wasn't alive in the 50s.
I wasn't alive in the 50s.
Well, if he
Specialist, you know?
if he sold more than 1 million copies, that is not specialist, I'm afraid.
I just don't get it. Sometimes people say, oh, you know. I mean, Chuck Berry, right? I could name about 3 of his songs, but a lot of fuss was made about him as well for the same sort of reasons. I don't get it.
You don't get Chuck Berry either?
No, not really.
Well, Chuck Berry kind of was one of those guys who also pioneered a certain style of music.
Why don't you give me the rock and roll
Here, I've got
music.
a list of his songs here, okay?
Yeah.
Thinking
Do you
of
think
you.
I'm interested? Do you think
Thinking
I really
of
care?
you. I Can't Go On. Don't You Know. Don't Blame It On Me.
Yeah.
Bo Weevil, okay?
Bo
Poor
Weevil.
Me. Yeah.
That's some sort of disease, isn't it? That
The
ruins
Fat
the
Man,
cotton,
there's one
the
for you.
cotton
The Fat
plants.
Man, Tired of Crying, Going Home, You Said You Love Me, Going to the River, Please Don't Leave Me, Rosemary. You know, it goes on and on.
Yeah, but you couldn't hum any of those, could you?
No, I couldn't.
No, could you? That's what I mean.
Yeah, but listen,
There's
I
not
know
of
a
fuss
lot
made
more
about a
than
guy
you know
who
about...
made 2 records,
Hang on,
basically.
I know a lot more about the music business than you do, okay? You'd probably accept that. However, I do not know as much about the music business as Robert Plant, Jimmy Page, John Lennon, Elvis Presley, and everybody else who said this guy was a massive
but I
influence
think-
on their careers.
I think they say it sometimes just to sound sort of with the in crowd. You know what I mean?
Why does Robert Plant and
you know,
Jimmy Page need to be in with the in crowd?
Oh, let's not brand Fats Domino as a bum because
Well, he's
the-
clearly not a bum.
The father of pop and all this. Anyway, listen, I was going to tell you about pub names.
There isn't any room now. Look, you've talked your way all
What?
the way through to the bottom of the hour.
Oh well,
There's no time left.
But it was a decent discussion because you're trying to big up a bloke that you've never really listened to
No,
or heard.
all I'm telling
Because
you...
you're trying to be with the in crowd as usual.
All I'm telling you is basically that all of these massively popular and successful rock musicians and musicians of all shadows and hues and all sorts of other things have said this guy was a genius.
So
and
you
that he
don't really have a mind of your own about it.
Well, I do.
No,
I
you
quite
don't.
I told
You're saying,
you.
oh, they liked him, so he must be good.
Well,
why
hang
don't
on.
you try and listen to it and see if you think
Hang
he's
on.
any good or not?
Well, I told you that I think if you were to run an hour's music programme show about songs of great influence over the history of pop music, that Blueberry Hill would be there.
Nah.
You just don't like to accept these things.
I like that other one, Blackberry Way.
Blackberry Way?
No, hang on.
Who's
What's
that
it
by?
called? A guy called Satchmo sang it. What was his name?
I mean Louis Armstrong.
Louis Armstrong, yeah.
Blackberry Way?
Oh, no, Blueberry Hill. Was it Blueberry Hill?
Blueberry Hill.
Yeah, Blueberry
I
Hill.
left
That's
my
it.
sweetheart
I
on
left
Blueberry Hill.
I left my heart on Blueberry Hill.
No, my sweetheart. I left my
My
sweetheart.
heart.
It's my sweetheart. How can you get so much wrong?
Blueberry Hill.
He said, I left my heart in San Francisco. I left my sweetheart on Blueberry Hill.
Yeah, okay.
Well, I
Splitting
found
hairs
my
again.
sweetheart on Blueberry Hill, actually.
Splitting hairs.
It's not splitting hairs. David says, Porky the Hatchet Man, does that name come from the fact that he was always being axed?
That's a bit harsh, isn't it?
Very good. Anyway, enough of that. Coming up next, we've got the Ask Porky. So if you want a problem solved, now's your chance to do it. Right now, though, it's time for the news with Victoria Bourne.
When I was younger, so much younger than today, I never needed anybody's help in any way. Now these days are gone, I'm not so self-assured. Now I find I've changed my mind and open up the doors. Help me if you can.
We had a tweet earlier on from somebody saying, well done, Porky. We're an hour and 40 minutes into the show and you haven't mentioned the Beatles once. We have, of course, mentioned them in the last 5 or 10 minutes. However, that was wrong as well because you mentioned Ringo Starr right at the top of the show.
I did.
But that music right there, Help, is, of course, nothing to do with the Beatles. It is all to do with Ask Porky.
It is indeed.
That's why we're playing it, because this is the chance where you get to ask any question you can of Mr. Parry, whether it's for a point of information, whether it's for some advice.
Yes.
We've sent the we brought the bar down. So we've got all the questions we need. So we're now going to start off. And can I ask you, please, to be as succinct as possible? And don't forget, we are filming this because we've now got cameras in the studio. So
We certainly are.
So don't move the equipment around too much, otherwise
no.
you might not be able to see your face.
No.
Which may not be a bad thing.
My face must be seen.
Well, it must not be, actually. Right, now, here's one from Max to kick us all off. Do you think traffic lights should be turned off in the early hours of the morning?
I think traffic lights should be turned off a lot of the time in the 24-hour cycle, and the thing that I most despise are traffic lights in cycle lanes. I go home sometimes in the early hours, maybe 4 o'clock, 4:30. I something like that, and I'm stuck at a junction because a cycle lane light, the stupid little bike in green and red.
Sadiq Khan to thank.
Yeah, exactly. Got Sadiq Khan to thank for it, and that is stopping me crossing the cycle lane when there hasn't been a cyclist on it for an hour, and there won't be for another 3 hours before rush hour. Of course, you should abandon traffic lights in the middle of the night.
Okay, why can't they do what they do in America, which is to change a red and a green sort of to a flashing orange, so that you stop.
Yeah.
But if there's nothing coming,
you
can
turn left and all that. Yeah.
Martin says this: with Halloween approaching, what will you dress up as?
I don't practice Halloween at all.
No.
Somebody arrives on my doorstep and they want to do a trick or treat, I just don't bother answering the door.
Really?
In fact, I shout through the door and tell them to push off.
Why don't you give them some of that loose change you've got collected?
Well, because it's not legal tender anymore. So, but I'm not into Halloween at all. Forget it. And it's going to happen this weekend, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
Because Halloween is next Tuesday night.
Is it not? Is
the
it Tuesday or
31st?
Monday?
No, it's the 31st, and so it's all going to happen this weekend. What a bore.
Yeah. How about this from Andy? Has Porky ever lied to write a good story?
No, I've never told a lie in print or on the air.
Right.
I couldn't do that. I couldn't live with my conscience. The answer is no.
Okay, what about the lawsuit from Katie Thingy?
That was a technical matter in which I was instructed to write things that I didn't necessarily have evidence of.
All right.
I was told by somebody else.
I see. Here's a political a question from Stuart. Brexit. Why can't we just cancel the standing order and tell them to do one? It's only a club.
Well, that's the raging political argument. Do you have to have an exit deal in place before we exit? And I'm afraid it's the most potent political argument that's going on at the moment, has been, bores me to death.
Yeah.
And frankly, my own view is if we decide to pull out, just pull out.
Yeah. Just go for it. How about this one from Ian? He says, I'm planning a surprise romantic birthday for my wife. As a man with plenty of experience, what would you recommend?
Well, I mean, crikey, man, a surprise romantic...
I'll tell you, but it'd be a great surprise would be you turning up.
I tell you, there's a million and one things you can do. And can I just say, it's not very romantic if you haven't got a big enough imagination to think of your own romantic gesture for the woman in your life to do something special. You shouldn't go around asking for recommendations for that because it should be in your head, your own particular tribute.
Okay. Delaris says this. What do you have any other phrases as good as bladderation in moderation?
Yes, loads of them. If you're not winning, it's because you're not trying hard enough. And maybe the other one that I like quite a lot is don't look back.
Okay. Don't look back in anger.
Don't look back.
Okay. Dean says, hi, Porky. Have you ever heard of Bitcoin, and would you ever consider investing?
I know of Bitcoin. I've heard of Bitcoin. It seems to be a currency which passes mostly between people who work in the financial sector of the City of London. It's not something I'm into. I like to see cold, hard cash in front of me.
Did you see that story this week about, I think, somebody in Notting Hill putting their house up for sale, but only for Bitcoin customers?
No, I didn't. What a jerk.
Well, not necessarily, because Bitcoin has gone up in value so much over the years that now people are buying and selling houses with Bitcoin.
I don't understand it, so I don't use it.
Okay. How about this one from Kieran? Rather cheeky question, this. How does Porky feel about turning 64 this year?
When I'm 64, I'll play that a few times when I get to 64. I'm not confirming or denying it's this year, but birthdays are there to be celebrated no matter what age.
Okay. How about this from George? What life lessons are missing from the school curriculum?
The school curriculum should teach you how to handle money. It should teach you that you should save for your future. There was when I was a kid, there was a guy who snuck around with called Peter Kennedy, who said the best way to look at life at our age, when we were 17, was listen to this. And there was a record called Be Young, Be Foolish, But Be Happy. I don't know who sang it. But he said, that's the mantra where I lead my life.
Was he one of the Kennedys?
No, he wasn't one of the Kennedys.
Well, why are we listening to him?
Well, he worked in the same warehouse as me. I was only 15, he was 17. We used to stack boxes of fairy liquid and that kind of stuff. He went on to become a useless bum.
Okay. What about this one from Tom, who says, Dear Porky, why does Ryan Giggs seem to think he's better than jobs at clubs like Oldham and others in nearby leagues, even though he has little managerial experience?
I have no idea. I think he is... Ryan Giggs is a terrific footballer, one of the most decorated footballers of all time, and talent beyond belief. But I do think he's deluded in thinking that magnificent football career should open doors for him to the management office of clubs like Everton. You've got to start at Hartlepool like Brian Clough did.
Okay. Here's one from Dean. He says, has Postman Pork been sacked for nicking all the gifts sent in for old MG?
No, Postman Pork has been on a relaxing and restorative break and will be back within the week. Please send your letters to Postman Pork at 18 Hatfields, London, SE1 8DJ.
Johnny says this. Have you heard the new Noel Gallagher song, Holy Mountain? It's had a lot of stick, but I quite like it.
I haven't heard that song, and I haven't actually heard his new album, but I've read all the reviews, and it seems to me like he's getting a pretty good response from the critics to his album.
Are you talking about Noel or Liam?
I'm talking about Noel.
Right, okay.
Oh, no, Noel. No, I haven't heard that. No, sorry.
Okay.
No, I'm talking about Liam's.
Because you're meant to be reviewing the Liam one, aren't you?
Yeah, I am going to Liam's is good. I haven't heard from Noel, but he's such a gifted songwriter. I can't believe he'd write anything that's not good.
Okay.
So I'm going to give it my verdict of yes, plus.
Right. Yeah, Richard says, what's your favourite broadcastable joke?
My favourite broadcastable joke is what do you call a white insect which is buzzing round the studio at 200 miles an hour?
I've no idea.
Sterling moth.
That's quite good.
Thank you.
For you. Now, how about this from Kieran? Another cheeky question. He says, I'm having a raging debate with my friend, so maybe you can end it. What exactly is the difference between winners and losers and heroes and villains?
The difference is that winners and losers are people who've achieved or not achieved.
Yes.
Heroes and villains are people who have done something heroic or non-heroic.
Indeed.
That is the difference.
And also, there's only 2 heroes and villains,
Exactly.
whereas there's 3 winners and losers.
Exactly.
So there's lots of differences. And also, one is on a Friday night,
Yeah.
and another one's on a Sunday night.
Lots of differences.
Lots of differences. Finally, the last question from Pierre. Porky, have you seen 2001: A Space Odyssey? I saw it recently, and it blew my mind.
I think I've
it's
seen
quite
it.
an old film.
I think I've seen it. Is it where a spaceship lands and, you know, the big doors open and all this kind of stuff?
No.
Well, in that case, I haven't seen
It's
it
the
then.
one where the computer's called HAL.
Oh, no, I haven't seen that, no. No, I
You've
don't
not
know anything
seen
about that.
It's Stanley Kubrick's sort of masterpiece.
I've seen Stanley Kubrick's A Clockwork Orange. Oh, that was a masterpiece, actually.
Did you?
Yeah, brilliant.
Very violent.
Yeah, very violent. Yeah, but a good guy,
It's
Kubrick.
nothing like that.
Right, okay.
You think Kubrick's a good guy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was Ask Porky.
Okay.
We are the 2 mics.
Thank you.
The 2 mics on Talk Radio. We'll get you talking.
Put a spell on you. Cause you're mine.
Now, I've got a question for you.
Yep.
How fast have you driven a car?
How fast have I driven a car?
Yeah.
I think I once drove a car at 140 miles an hour.
Really?
Yes.
And how exciting was that?
Frightening.
Frightening.
In
It's
my
amazing
view.
how much
Because-
it moves, isn't it?
Well,
when you're going around a bend
Not
on
only
a
that.
motorway or on a racetrack
Yeah.
at that kind of speed.
Not only that, but I mean, you think afterwards and you stand to shiver up your back. Suppose a tire had burst or something like that.
Well,
you know
yeah.
what I mean?
Well, you do it obviously in controlled
Yeah.
circumstances. We're going
Yeah.
to talk to a guy now
Yeah.
who once held the land speed record himself and is now the project manager of Bloodhound,
Yes.
which is the current attempted land speed record
Yeah.
car,
Yeah.
which is basically a rocket
Yeah.
on 4 wheels.
That's right.
Richard Noble, very good afternoon to you. Welcome.
Hey, good afternoon to you. You got a lot of that wrong.
Did I?
Right. Go on,
Okay.
then.
Well, tell us then,
Well,
Richard.
first
What do
I'm
we
the
get wrong?
project Director. Secondly, it's jet and rocket powered, and it's capable of 1,000 miles an hour, and it's got more power than the new British aircraft carrier.
Right.
Crikey.
So when I said it was a rocket
We've
on
just
4
got a
wheels,
helicopter going over.
so when I said it was a rocket on 4 wheels, it sounds about right, doesn't it?
Sorry, Rich, you're still there?
Oh, is that any better?
Yeah, that's fine, mate. No problem at all. So if it's not a rocket on wheels, what is it?
No, it's a jet and rocket. It's powered by a Eurofighter engine and a Namo hybrid rocket.
Oh, I see. Right.
Okay, so it's a specific kind of rocket.
Basically, it's the world's first 100-megawatt car.
Right.
It's 135,000 horsepower.
And that's incredible, isn't it? I mean, and you've been testing it today, haven't you? Because I've seen reports of it getting up to sort of speeds of 200-300 miles an hour.
No, 200 miles an hour. We can't do faster than that on a runway here because we use rubber tires.
I'm making a complete
And they're
mess
only
of this,
cleared
aren't I?
to 200.
I'm getting it all wrong here, Porky. Maybe you should take over.
Yeah.
I
well-
don't know where your research is coming from.
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right there, Richard. Now, what is the eventual plan? Where are you going to end up trying to achieve this incredible record of moving an object along the ground at 1,000 miles an hour?
Well, let's start at the beginning. The main objective of this thing is to create a new generation of scientists and engineers in Britain. Mm-hmm. We've got an enormous problem. We're falling down the international rankings in terms of our education, and we're into Brexit. We need to increase our manufacturing from a miserable 8% of GDP to somewhere around about 25%. And we need big time the scientists and the engineers. So that's the sort of background to it. We've got an education program that runs alongside with this, and we're now the largest in Britain. We did 129,000 kids last year. So we're making some sort of change here, which is really good. The car itself is designed to run on a desert, and we have a wonderful desert called the Hakskeen Pan in South Africa.
Right.
And the Northern Cape government there, who basically look after the desert, they've decided to support us. And they spent 1,000-man years preparing the desert for us.
Golly.
Because presumably it has to be absolutely and utterly flat with absolutely no kinks in it at all, right?
That's exactly right, yeah. Otherwise, there's a real danger of the car flying.
I've got something right.
Incredibly flat, unbelievably flat. It's a natural thing, you see. It's much flatter than a man-made desert could be done.
Richard, how do you stop it taking off? Because anything moving at that speed on the ground, you only need it to lift about half a degree at the front, don't you? And then you're into bluebird territory.
Yes, well, the thing about it is this is all about the research, and we've done 5 years of computational fluid dynamics. It's an enormous program.
Yeah.
And we've got to be very, very careful, as you rightly say, with the car. So each time we run the car, we only increase the speed by small increments to keep it safe. And also, of course, we're all the time referring the data back to the main research data to make sure that we're safe and healthy.
Sure.
And the aim is to get up to 1,000 miles per hour. I think I'm right in saying. What sort of material have you got the wheels made out of? Because as Mike was saying,
the wheels are made of special aluminium, which is basically forged in Germany and machined by Castle Engineering in Glasgow. They are just under a meter in diameter. They run at 10,200 RPM. And that's 50,000 radial Gs. So the radial acceleration is enormous on these wheels. It's about the limit that you can do in terms of aluminium wheels. Yeah. And they were designed by 20 companies and led by Lockheed Martin.
Okay. And have they got tyres, or are they just the
No. You can't keep a tyre on.
No.
Not at 50,000 G.
No. So no. So what's in actual what is in contact with the desert floor, as it were? Is it the aluminium?
Yes, it is. And the thing to understand, you see, is that we can't use a tar, okay, because the tar would simply disintegrate.
Yeah.
And so what we've got to do is we've got to be a bit clever, and we've got to use a special sort of desert, which does the job of the tar. And this is this special alkali plier desert, which we use. And we first pioneered this with Thrust 2 way back in 1983, and then again with Thrust SSC when we broke the sound barrier in 97.
I see. And when you've done this, when you get to 1,000 miles an hour, does it have any commercial application then? I mean, will we have vehicles...
Enormous. Absolutely massive.
Yeah, go on.
I mean, it's not going to help Granny on the M25. Let's start with that one. But basically, all the companies are learning so much because this is all about innovation. We've got about 300 companies working on it. We're pushing them to develop new applications of their products. We're promoting them in a huge way, and it has a huge effect on their entire workforce too, because everybody gets very excited and very worked up.
Sure.
And so they get much higher levels of motivation and productivity. And it's going to have a huge effect, massive.
And what about Andy Green, who's the driver? What sort of training can you give? I mean, you've driven these kinds of cars at these kinds of speeds before. I think I'm right in saying you held the land speed record yourself. I mean, what kind of training do you have to go through to prepare to drive something at this speed?
Well, Andy, basically from my point of view, when I did it, I was starting from scratch.
Yeah.
So I had really minimal level of experience. I was a light aircraft pilot with a few hours in light aircraft, which is quite healthy for discipline. From Andy's point of view, he started with 3,000 hours of fast jet time, and also a first-class honours degree in mathematics at Oxford. And he of course holds the land speed record now, having driven the first ever supersonic car, which was our Thrust SSC car. So there's nobody better qualified for all this than Andy.
But I mean, I suppose my question is, you're going up from 700 and something to 1,000. I mean, what's likely to be the difference in those, inside the cockpit of the car, if you like?
Well, the funny thing is, I don't think it's very much. That's just purely my personal way of looking at it. You see, the interesting thing is that the human body adapts amazingly. So from my own experience all those years ago, every morning I'd be out and I'd drive the car at 600 to 650 miles an hour. And after a bit, you get acclimatized to it. Everything happens in slow motion. And, it's a kind of nice country drive, really. It sounds ridiculous, but that's the case.
That's
you
right.
can even see every single detail on the track come up and go underneath the car at 650 miles an hour.
Absolutely,
Okay, so we're going to go a bit faster, and I think the human body can acclimatise to that.
Okay, and we had a discussion before you came on, Richard. How do you stop?
Yeah, you're dead right. Stopping is much more difficult than getting up to speed because you've got a car which has got, you've minimised the drag. It's heavy because, of course, it's a bit of a beast, and they are difficult to stop. So the traditional way of stopping them is with brake parachutes.
Yeah.
But we're not happy about the brake parachutes, or certainly Andy isn't. We've got supersonic parachutes, which can be deployed at supersonic speeds. But so we've decided to do something different. And we've got air brakes on the car. These are very, very expensive.
I should think they are. To try and bring a car down from a speed of 1,000 miles an hour to a dead stop. I mean...
So what happens is you come out of the measured mile at over 1,000 miles an hour. Okay, then immediately, as soon as you throttle back on the engine, then you're starting to get enormous levels of drag, which slow it up. And then gradually what you do is you open the air brakes. And these two large barn doors on either side of the car. Gradually you open these up until they're fully open, and that'll get you down to somewhere around probably about 300 miles an hour. You live with that for a little bit, and then you start bringing the wheel brakes in at about 250.
Wow.
You make it sound very easy. Richard, listen, thank you very much indeed for sparing the time to talk to us. I'm sorry I got so much wrong about the rocket-propelled engine.
I mean, as Richard said,
to be
you
honest,
really should have done your research.
It didn't seem like I got that much wrong. I mean, I think he was being a bit pedantic, to be fair.
Yeah,
but anyway, that's it for us today. Thank you very much indeed. Mr. Sam Delaney is here, however, to carry on with the supersonic nature of Talk Radio.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Great show, fellas. I will be kicking off with this report that says 300,000 people leave their jobs every year because of mental health reasons. Theresa May commissioned a report. She commissioned a lot of reports.
Yeah.
Recently we had the racial equality one.
Yeah.
So she's good at commissioning reports, which earn a good headline, don't they? Because it goes, look at this, I'm interested in this.
And also you can say, as a politician, oh, look what I did. I commissioned a report.
Exactly, but the commissioning a report's one thing, getting it done is another. She can't get much done at the moment, but she's at least showed, I suppose, willing. So we'll be looking at that.
I think the trouble is that we've all got such low expectations of our politicians now.
Yes.
That, they do anything and you think, oh, well, it's better than nothing.
Yeah.
Why do people mostly leave the workplace then?
Well, 300,000 people, they're saying, relate to mental health issues. So I suppose that's a variety of different things, isn't it?
Yeah.
And they're saying problem is it's still a taboo to discuss it in the workplace as well. I mean, you two, veterans of the unforgiving, hard-working, hard-playing world of Fleet Street, I suppose, being able to come forward to an editor or a boss and saying, listen, I'm feeling basically a bit miserable, and so you need to cut me a break, give me some time off. It's not an easy thing in some workplaces to do, is it?
No. But it's a lot easier now than it was.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, it was impossible to do 10 years ago, but I think now it's changed an awful lot.
I worked at one paper where over the years 17 people ended up in the Priory.
Really?
Yeah. 17 people end up in the Priory because of the bullying antics of the guy at the top, okay? And they were never able to go to anybody and say, I can't stand this anymore.
Because what would someone say if you said in the environment back in those days?
You know where the door is.
Yeah, precisely.
Yeah.
So I suppose she's looking to lead a fight against that kind of culture, and we'll see whether or not she's a success. We'll also be speaking to Anne Widdecombe about Jeremy Corbyn going on Gogglebox. He's going on doing a Gogglebox special, so she's going to talk about mixing politics and showbiz. Okay. That and a whole lot more.
Excellent.
That's me done. Is that you done?
That's me done. I can tell you more.
I thought we were done.
Yeah, no, yeah. So you're done.
So what do I do now?
So you just wrap it up, and then I'll pick up afterwards.
It would have been smoother if you'd done that.
No, usually it's you. It's usually you.
Yeah, I'm not usually.
I'm happy to though.
Yeah, well, we probably should.
Okay.
They'd like my voice to be the last voice. So
I think that's appropriate.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely appropriate.
Well, you're not coming back after this.
I'm not coming back after this.
But
thank you everybody listening to us on Talk Radio here this afternoon. We'll be back tomorrow 1 to 4, the two mics. Delighted to hand you over now to the great Sam Delaney.
Stop talking.
Talk Radio.